216-7904 if you want to get all technical. It is the start of the People's Show, 9:30 in the a.m. on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. The start of 3.5 hours to get you right up to kickoff. We yield to SquirrelPatrol, Erik Beimfohr. They come in around 11 o'clock on the East Coast. Later on, you get Kristi and Dre, as well as Justin Carlucci, taking y'all up the lock on Crunch Time. Joining me today, it's Bobby Gomes. Bobby, how are things in your world? I know, Bobby, both of you guys have been partaking. We've been chatting, building a little bit of a, little bit of a, I'm not really sure what the word, chemistry. I couldn't get there for some reason, Bobby. Talking a little hockey during the week. We're going to talk a little basketball during the week, I suppose. We'll see. But the People Show, this is right. We hit our stride. Week number 7. How are things in your world? Are we ready to put a lipstick on the pig as far as this slate? It's a 10-gamer. It's not spectacular. It feels kind of small. 6 teams on a bye. The best game, unfortunately, not on the main slate. That's Miami and Philadelphia. KC and the Chargers. We're looking at, 47 total. Biggest total on the board. Waiting for some body parts. Not really sure as far as DK Metcalf. He's currently questionable and playing late. Kareem Hunt seems like a big one as well. Everything else I think we pretty much got. Bobby, how's Sunday treating you?
Yeah, that's treating me well. Lipstick on a pig. Very good analogy for what this slate is. Like, no total over 48.5. It's not the greatest of slates, but we're going to try to walk you guys through it. Hopefully we can help you out. We couldn't decide on a cash game, Shell, so we're going to build it on the fly on the show. So interested to see how this goes. It's going to be our first time doing this, so hopefully Steve can follow along. Tim, how you doing, bud?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, this is a very, I'd say it's a pretty hard slate, really. I'm looking forward to talking it through with you guys. A lot of different things that we're kind of waiting on, I think. Ian, I think we need to discuss, how to kind of like build into late swap because a lot of the really good games are later on in the day. So I don't think we need to get too involved with we do need some pieces of the early games, but we do need to leave room to adjust later on as well.
Yeah, there are some best games by default. None of the games are spectacular, but the first 6, so you're getting 6 and 4. So it's a nice breakdown. I like that breakdown, especially for red zone purposes. First game, Washington Giants 37.5, Raiders Bears 37.5. The battle of Tyson Bagent versus Brian Hoyer. Some terrible quarterback matchups. The Bills, I haven't seen the Bills in this kind of total this low at 40.5 in a while. Maybe since that win game, I suppose. But the Bills at New England 40.5. Most of that obviously on New England's inept offense. Cleveland 40.5 against Indianapolis. That's in a dome and probably one of the more appealing games on the board. But again, the total not especially high, scoring down all throughout football the entire season as well. 37.5 in Tampa with the Falcons, and then the Lions at the Ravens. I feel like if this game is in the dome in Detroit, this game will be a lot more appealing. It's certainly one of the more appealing games for me, 43.5. But Bobby, what's your thought on that as far as how much are you building in as far as swappability? And we were also talking about this pre-show. What if Metcalf doesn't go? And Metcalf seems like a true game time decision. I think the report was he's questionable. He's going to warm up, and he's going to warm up probably around 2-3 o'clock, somewhere in the middle of the first slate. And if he doesn't go, Seattle's got a team total, but around 26 or so against Arizona. Arizona, one of the worst, defenses in football. And we'll talk about Kenny Walker in a second. Charbonnet expected not to play, so. Walker's role is so solidified against DJ Dallas. Might get some catching work and third down, that kind of thing. But, if Metcalf is out, we get JSN unleashed. We saw his snap count raised last week as well, in part maybe because going back on the bye, in part maybe because Metcalf missed some snaps as well. But he's really cheap. Is that part of the stuff you're alluding to as far as the late stuff, the 4 o'clock stuff? The Seattle, if Metcalf doesn't go, I think that could potentially – I don't want to say it puts the slate on its head, right? But it bumps the slate to some degree, right? It gives it a nudge if nothing else.
Yeah, I'm extremely backloaded to begin with. I think all those guys from Seattle get a bump. Obviously, Walker's a very strong play regardless. Very strong play to be optimal. But then Lockett and JSN are guys that their counterparts, I would say Wandale in that same range as JSN, and then Lockett in the 6K range, which is pretty strong for a wide receiver. Those guys would like elevates the cream of the crop in those ranges. And we obviously won't have that news, so likely 230. So it is something to be aware of. I'm backloading just in general. But yeah, and it's more of just I think it's advantageous to backload on the slate anyways, because of the weather situations. The weather situations seem to be pretty, they don't seem favorable to good offenses on the East Coast. So if I can just take my guaranteed points in some of these West Coast games, then I'm pretty fine with that and make my adjustments at 230 when we do get news. So yeah, that's kind of how my script is constructed currently.
We'll talk about a cash game lineup. That's kind of how we start, like sort of the core of the slate. But interesting you brought up weather. Tim, how concerned are you about weather? I have Ross weather page up right now. Nothing beyond yellow for the Giants. Washington at the Giants, sustained winds. It's basically just wind. It's not precipitation. 15 to 20 miles per hour for the Giants game. Wind gust around 25, 30. Buffalo at New England, wind gust, sustained winds 10 to 15, gust 20, 25. In Baltimore, gust 25 to 30, sustained winds 15 and 25. And with the Philly game, we don't care about until later on tonight as far as showdown. How concerned are you, Tim, as far as wind and just weather in general? I have not been terribly concerned with it, so it was interesting to hear Bobby bring it up.
Yeah, I'm really not too concerned with this weather situation. Like, if we want Lamar to exceed expectations, we have to expect that he gets some rush work, right? So that's not going to be affected by the wind. Guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think is in an amazing spot, not going to be affected by the wind. There are certain pieces of these games that I just don't think are going to be really that affected. I don't really have a whole lot of interest in the Giants game, at least from the offensive perspective. So, and then the same thing, I do have some interest in the Bills for GPPs for sure, but no, that's not a game that I be looking to build into that heavily.
Is there a game, Bobby, or a team like you're most concerned about, like you're thinking about going heavy on, and like you're slightly concerned as far as the wind? What situation are you talking about mostly?
Maybe I was just rating the situation because I think it was different yesterday. The Washington situation, I do like Wan'Dale. I do like Tyrod. I think you're paying down at QB a lot of the times. Wan'Dale, I think, was a piece for within cash construction prior to this like Metcalf news where JSN's in the same price range and it might bump JSN ahead of him, or just leaving JSN or opportunity to get to JSN might be just the way to go anyways. But short passes within the win would benefit Wan'Dale. I do also think that it helps that he's got Slayton and Hyatt running deep to kind of take coverage off. Just from a
Bobby, that is not a Bobby play. Wan'Dale Robinson with like his 2A dot that is so not a Bobby.
No, I'm talking about it from the context of cash. That's what because we're usually starting out with cash game, right? So,
okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, in tournaments, the team was obviously Baltimore. I want to play Lamar, but I did worry about just the win. And I was probably overrating this stuff. Like I thought it was a lot worse yesterday. Did it move any lines? Like if it didn't move lines, I'm fine with it. But when I was building my player pool, I was looking at it and I was like, oh, this might be something I should try to avoid a little bit.
I was staring at the lines earlier in the week, and basically all the lines took a hit. It seems like essentially, bettors, they're kind of catching on to the theme of the season with this team's just not scoring. So a lot of lines dipped like from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday, and I think they mostly settled. I don't think any lines have really adjusted. If I missed it, my bad. I don't know, Tim, if you caught anything, but we should have. Let's have producer Steve throw up the screen. We can go ahead and build our cash shell lineup. There's a couple we fully agree on, right, Tim? As far as, on DK for playing cash lineups, we kind of hinted at Walker already and Cooper Kupp. Give me like the 30-second spiel. You don't have to sell people on it. We do live in the world with salary cap, but if you have one big spend this week, it's probably Cooper Kupp in cash. What do you got, Tim?
Yeah, no, definitely Cooper Kupp is your premier spend for cash games today. I would say, there's a lot of good running backs kind of in that same 6 to 7K range. I would say that Kenneth Walker would be my favorite. I love that game just in general. And that is not dependent on anything to do with Metcalf either. So you don't have to worry about that. Walker, I think, is definitely a smash for cash games. We do need to talk about this Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt situation, though, right? Because Kareem Hunt misses. I would imagine Jerome Ford is an absolute smash for cash games and for GPPs. We do need to talk quite a bit about that Browns-Colts game. It's being played indoors. It's popping in optimals quite a bit. Guys like David Njoku, Deshaun Watson, Jerome Ford, all are in the cash game conversation. I was saying to Dean pre-show that I don't think you should go above David Njoku for tight end for cash games. That doesn't mean you have to play Njoku, but Musgrave, Njoku, what was it? Mayer, right, Dean?
We saw him get a jump last week, and theoretically he's the tight end of the future there for Vegas. So a nice matchup against Chicago as well. And he's super cheap. He's like 2.7 or 2.9, something like that. And it's tight.
Yeah, so definitely a week that for cash, I'm not looking to spend more than $3,400 on DK. It's definitely tough though. Quarterback for me is where I'm struggling the most. I would say that optimizers probably want you to play Deshaun Watson. I'm not 100% on board with that, so that's why he's not on the screen. But that may very well be who I end up playing. I'm not positive yet.
So optimizers can't really capture all the nuance around Watson, right, Tim? Like that's the thing because, well, he was cleared by the team doctor several weeks ago and just kind of basically opted out himself to not play. He did not play coming back from a bye. Now, like if we're assuming he's fine and good to go, and obviously he's got a good history several years ago being a really good fantasy play, especially considering the price, in a dome, which is so rare this week as well. Also, you mentioned as far as the environment, according to the Blitz, shout out to Cardi, this game is expected to have the most snaps, the most game plays on the entire slate as well when it comes to pace. But like he's kind of stunk. He's mostly stunk this year. And is he bad now? I don't know. And you never really know how to capture that as far as projections. And I'm really curious what people are going to do with it because I don't know what to do with them. It sounds like you don't know what to do with them. I'm curious what Bobby, what are you doing with Deshaun Watson this week? And if you knew people weren't going to play him, you go over. But if he's going to be pretty popular, do you want a pretty popular Deshaun Watson? Like quarterback only gets so high because there's only one quarterback, right? I don't know what the ownership number could be where it's like, well, I just don't want that. But I'm curious, Bobby, what's your I know we're talking cash, but since we have you on this and you're more of a tournament brain anyway, and it's worth talking about. What is your take on Deshaun this week, Watson? Because it appears he's going to be, at least according to the numbers, he's probably going to be popular. But are people going to override that? Are you overriding that?
Yeah, I think. What do we have for ownership currently? Do we have that up?
Yeah, I'll give it a refresh. I was just pulling that up. Let's see, 12% for Gino. So what's interesting? Oh, you know what it is? Is if you go, I think it's a distinctly different projection on the Blitz and what RotoGrinders has. So I bet the Blitz has a much higher owned. Tim, you happen to have that in front of you? Let's see if I can.
Well, Lineup HQ has Deshaun Watson at 5%.
It's going to be over that. I think
it's going to be over that, but it's not getting. We're not getting. It's quarterback. It's spread out.
I don't think it's going to get. I don't think it's going to get that much higher than that. It will be. I think it will be higher than 5%, but not by a ton.
So, Bobby, either like him or you don't. Forget about the ownership stuff, right? Are you either in or you're out?
I like him. I think he's fine to get over within tournaments. The Colts secondary is abysmal. Really like Amari Cooper, David Njoku. I think they're good plays. I think the stack's fine, and they're in a dome, right? And they're in a dome. But in the context is this slate doesn't have very many high totals. So in a dome, you could see ceiling games. I don't mind getting over on Deshaun Watson or the stack at all. In cash, I could play Watson. I don't think I'd have much of an issue with it. And another thing is the pace of I think Russell Wilson or Jordan Love would be the pivots that people are trying to decide on. Russell Wilson at 5.4, I'm fine with. I don't love him. This is the difficulty with playing cash. You have to play one of these guys, but I think I would just go to the dome game with Watson.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it just makes sense to pay the extra $300 for Watson and avoid.
Did you mention Gino? I think Geno's like going to be the most popular quarterback in cash. Maybe I'm wrong in saying that.
I don't think that's. I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either because Walker's being with Walker, with the thought process of Walker being okay, Charbonnet's out. He's pretty much a lock. I think people are going to go down, and I think that's why these guys like Watson, Love, and Russell are getting steamed up a little bit for cash games.
Because I think because in cash games, I don't think people are going to want to play Geno and Walker.
Yeah, you capture all 5 Seattle touchdowns theoretically until they score 2 defensive touchdowns.
True.
But yeah, no, it's a fair point. And I was running some optimal stuff earlier and like before the show, and like a lot of Cleveland was popping. I'm like, that's way too much Cleveland that I was seeing. And again, I was using the RG stuff and I was using the blitz stuff and getting a little bit of a different mix. And a lot of it, like you were talking about, Tim, is contingent upon if Hunt plays. Look at the actives and inactives for Cleveland at 11:30. So if nothing else, Beimfohr and Squirrel, they're going to talk about that when they jump on. We don't have that information just yet, but 90 minutes before that game starts, so I'll let it be known. And I believe they also called somebody up, right? That's kind of like the sign, the signal. But they did call up a backup quarterback too, I believe, or they activated them off the practice squad. So there's at least a signal that maybe Hunt does not go. But I want to say he was like no practice, limited practice, something like that. He never got a full practice in. But yeah, Ford really a really strong play. It is kind of wild, Tim. Just like we should just acknowledge it.
Can we have Steve slide? Can we? Oh, sorry, Dean. Can we have Steve slide in forward? If we're can we have Steve slide in forward to this second running back position if we go under the assumption that Hunt's out?
Yeah.
All right, that opens up salary a little bit. What quarterback do we want to put? I guess we're putting quarterback 5.5, 6K, 6.5, somewhere around there, Tim. We're going to yield to you as kind of the de facto quarterback when it comes to locking guys in here, and we say lock. This is just one path, obviously. But your favorite quarterback right now, with the information we have right now for cash, is who?
Probably Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that's wild. By the way, we should also say he's not officially starting, right?
No, I know. I mean, we're waiting on a ton of news, but assuming he's in, I mean, we haven't projected in. The Blitz hasn't projected in. So I'm under the assumption that he does play. So yeah, Watson is my cash game guy. If Hunt is out, Ford is 100% cash game. I would be getting tons of him in GPPs also. I don't really care about his ownership. He should absolutely crush at that price tag.
You mentioned earlier you didn't want to force it, but you talked about Njoku as a potential tight end, about as high as you're going to go when it comes to spending tight end in your cash game lineup. You're okay, assuming that we're without Hunt. You're okay with having all that tied to Cleveland as far as Ford, Njoku, and Watson. All that is fine.
Yeah, I mean, if Hunt is out and I really want Ford, I might get off Njoku just because there are other guys in that same kind of price range, like Musgrave. Mayers is the punt guy that we discussed. I think you could even play somebody like honestly, I mean, Logan Thomas burned a lot of people last week in cash games. I wouldn't hate it if people tried to go back to him. Maybe that's more of just a tournament play. But I think he would be interesting in that price range also. I think Dawson Knox at 2,900 is super interesting. Maybe that's more of a tournament play, not a cash game play. But I think there are plenty of kind of low end tight ends that you can go with in cash games.
I thought Musgrave was like the de facto cash game guy at 3-3. That's what
he could be. I mean, it kind of depends on what system you're using, but it seems like a lot of systems are either giving you Musgrave or Njoku, and I don't really have an issue with either one. I think it's a coin flip.
So what about McBride at 2.6?
Say again?
McBride too thin for cash at 2.6?
I think McBride's way too thin for cash games. Tournaments.
Interesting for tournaments.
Yeah, and I also think is it Ogletree for the Colts? He's min price. I think for tournaments, I think he would be a pretty good play too. Maybe that's like a $15, maxing 150 type play. But I think there's a lot of viable punts at tight end today.
Is he overtaken Cox, or is it just kind of like a 1 and 1A and they're both kind of terrible, but he's super cheap and that's the point?
Right. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like they're both kind of terrible and he's ridiculously cheap. So
what's your thought process on Mayer versus McBride? Would you think Mayer's cash game viable?
I don't know. Like, Dean said something pre-show, like, what if he gets you whatever you want? Like, then that would be the argument. I think he's projected for something like 4.3 targets or something like that. I think he's okay. I don't have a lot of faith in that team or that game in general. So it's like,
that position.
Well, that's the thing. I think there are good plays that are cheap tight ends. So I don't really necessarily want to like build into that game necessarily. I think that game is going to be one of the worst on the slate.
Since we're on that though, Bobby, I'm curious. You're talking about these cheap, terrible tight ends. Are you thinking about unleashing these guys in tournaments? We saw McBride finally get some run last week. Go ahead.
I'm definitely looking to play McBride a little bit. We've seen that snap count go up. It could be a changing of the guard. My thing is with Mayer had all of his points on like that first drive with Jimmy and then 2 catches after that. So that's why I would say McBride might be more of a viable cash game play if you were considering Mayer than actually playing Mayer for 100 less. But you guys are just of the assumption that he's not a cash game play at all, which I get he's very thin for cash. But in DK cash, traditionally, like, you can punt tight end as low as you want to go, right? Like, I feel like you don't really – it's the tight end position. I know tight ends in the context of this slate, there's a little bit more opportunity cost, but I don't know. If I can get more savings and see what I can get, like, I wouldn't have an issue playing him.
You're talking McBride. Something tells me you're going to be on Seattle stacks and you're thinking of run backs. Is that where your brain is processing? Brown's going to be fairly popular as a run back there for Arizona. He's getting a ton of targets. Not all targets are created equal. His targets, they're created poorly because they're thrown by Josh Dobbs, but he's getting a lot, and theoretically they'll be down, so they're going to have to throw, and he's their number one receiver pretty clearly. I'm trying to do the same thing, Bobby, because I like Seattle a good bit. They're one of my favorite teams, as is everybody else. And Geno stacks, it's like, okay, you can play Geno with Metcalf is out, like Geno with Lockett, and then JSN is super, super obvious and pretty cheap. And then especially if you're running back with somebody like McBride or Brown, is that where your brain's at too? You're thinking about possible run backs? Not that you have to run it back. Again, Arizona could lose this game 38-10. It wouldn't shock us, but I'm just curious, is that where you're coming from as far as trying to make McBride happen?
Yeah, and my favorite run back is someone that you didn't even mention. It's Michael Wilson at 3,800. Yes. Versus zone coverage. It's a very good spot for Michael Wilson. Doesn't do well versus man, but very good versus zone. And Arizona, not the greatest versus Seattle, sorry, not the greatest versus second wide receivers. I think they give up the most fantasy points to the secondary wide receiver in the league. So yeah, I like Wilson a good bit at 3.8. And he's in that range where you have Wandale, who was
JSN,
Slayton. Yeah, there's a lot of guys, and he's just going to be the guy that's just completely left out. And it's a good pace game, obviously. Yeah, I really like Michael Wilson, but that's more of a tournament play. You're not playing that in cash.
It's funny you say that, by the way. Should I share this? I guess I can share this, right? I do the Pick Six show with Daigle and Rebar. Rebar, his son has been playing DFS for the first time ever in his life. I think he's 18 now. He's having a good time. And Rebar was telling me, like, hey, he likes to be super, super ambitious and just go off the board with like some kind of crazy plays, And I told him, I said, listen, you gotta send me a DM. Let me know, who your son's like favorite wacky play of the week is. You know who it was? He likes himself some Michael Wilson this week. So there you go. You guys are in line, and that's not even terribly goofy, right? I was expecting somebody even wilder, but yeah, I don't hate that as a run back at all. Let's get back to this cash game. Wide receiver 2. What do we have here, Tim? As far as our wide receiver 2, is there anything super obvious? Again, like if we knew that Metcalf was out, we'd probably play JSN. I think we'd play JSN, or at least consider it as a salary saver. This Kansas City, Charger game, theoretically want to get some pieces of that. It's kind of hard to get to it in cash, as far as Mahomes, as far as Herbert, as far as Kelsey. But, if you want a piece of Palmer, you can get there. Keenan Allen, if you're getting that, you basically can't get Cooper Kupp, and that's a tricky decision. Rice, I guess, is kind of sort of somewhat interesting, but I don't really think we're getting much of that. This is the conversation we were talking about, Tim, pre-show. I guess it's more of the running back thing, and I guess we can kind of circle back on it. But Gibbs versus Pacheco, basically the same price. We've seen Pacheco get a rise as far as his usage there, and Gibbs theoretically is going to basically have a big chunk of that Detroit backfield, the absence of Montgomery. Where do you want to go here, Tim? You want to talk some wide receiver too? We're not going to give away the entire board, but what's like your next, like, I don't want to say clear and obvious pick, but where would you go? What's the path right now as far as this lineup?
So I really want to build into that Arizona-Seattle game. So I think Marquise Brown for cash games would be my next guy in. He's 5,300. I think a lot of optimizers may say to play Joshua Palmer, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. I would just prefer to get up to Marquise Brown. That would be my next play in for me. Deontay Johnson is very, very interesting as well. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in Pittsburgh. So I'm gonna go Marquise Brown. He's got, massive target share, massive air yard share. So I think my guy for cash is Marquise Brown in that kind of mid-range wide receiver 2 spot.
The Johnson thing is interesting. Tim, I was gonna say on Johnson, like, he's underpriced. If you assume he's just like fine and good to go, and there's no setbacks, coming back from the IR hasn't played, since week 1 or week 2, whatever it was. But he's 5K in a vacuum. If you just woke up, right? If you were sleeping the last month and you see Deontay Johnson's 5K, it's like, well, what happened? Why is this guy so cheap? But you never really know as far as team philosophy, how much they need him. Maybe he was good the last week or so, and like you put him on IR, they got to sit out for 4 weeks. But I think he's really interesting, if nothing else, for tournaments. It's just trusting Pickett is kind of tricky too, right? In a dome and probably coming back. They're only 3-point dogs, which is kind of surprising. Not that the Rams are this juggernaut, but I thought that was a little surprising. I thought be at least a 4 number is when it comes to Vegas. But yeah, is that your apprehension as far as Johnson? Just like you don't know what you're going to get. Maybe they.
I feel safer with Marquise Brown. I mean, that's the bottom line, and that's who I want to have in a cash game lineup. Tournaments, Deontay Johnson, completely fine. Even in a 3-max setting, Deontay Johnson, completely fine. There's this whole range at wide receiver, like between 4.8 and say like 5.6 that I think is really, really strong. You got guys like Palmer, Brown, Zay Flowers, Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper at 6'1", Christian Watson, right? I think
this is the spot. This is the spot for Watson. This is the reason why guys are drafting Watson like 35th overall in best ball. I don't know, Bobby, kind of our best ball representative on the show, I suppose. But, he's been disappointing so far. But theoretically, at Denver, this should be the spot for Watson. And he's coming in kind of discounted. Or maybe he's just not that good. Like, people just trying to make it happen like Fetch, right? But theoretically, this is the spot for Watson to smash. But, like, do you trust him in your cash games? Because the floor feels pretty rough. I didn't mean to cut you off, Tim. Feel free to finish your thought there as far as the receivers in the mid-tier. And I guess Zay Flowers has kind of risen out of that mid-tier. He's not, like, expensive, but kind of breaking out of that mid-tier or the top of it. How do you feel about Zay for Baltimore?
Not for cash. For tournaments,
no?
Absolutely. Yeah, no. I would much prefer a lot of the guys I've already mentioned in that price range for cash games, but for tournaments, I have absolutely no problem with that.
What do you got, Bobby, as far as these names being thrown out here? And do you have any Watson? Is you're the best ball connoisseur on the show for sure. What, 45% HN? And that process versus results. He was fabulous for you for a couple of weeks, and he should come back. Theoretically, he'll be back soon enough. I haven't seen
Bobby tweet anything about best ball for like 4 weeks now. So I don't know is he still an influencer, or did he resign?
Upon the news
did he
flow.
resign?
It's all dependent on if I'm winning or not. That's
okay. All right.
So that's
selective influencer.
Yeah. No, my best ball teams. I think HN was like all I got right, but yeah, Marquise Brown. I think he's fine for cash. Zay Flowers also fine. Christian Watson would be more of a tournament. I do really like Deontay Johnson. Gets open, at like an extremely high rate, one of the highest in the league. He's back. They're in a dome. He's going to be lower owned in tournaments. I would be over on Deontay Johnson before all of these other guys. I feel like, or at least Marquise, right? Because like I said, my favorite receiver on Arizona is Michael Wilson. But yeah, don't hate the Marquise playing cash. Don't hate Zay in cash. Christian Watson. So I would imagine that if you're playing Jordan Love, like guys like Christian Watson and Musgrave, if you're playing them in the context of cash games, obviously, would be your plays rather than going to Deshaun Watson and Njoku. Or, yeah, I also, now I'm starting to think about it, maybe you should be playing Jordan Love and Musgrave instead of Watson and Njoku. But I don't think I'd play Christian Watson in cash. I think Marquise or Zay would probably come ahead of those guys for me, ahead of Christian Watson for me. Not a big matchups guy, but I do like I do consider it and Surtan's there. Yeah, I don't know. That's
you got a Denver run back. No, you don't have to run it back, but we got a Denver run back. I know we're all trying to make Mims happen, and Jesus, Sean Payton. What was this quote? It was so ridiculous. Like, he's trying his best to break out. It's like, well, you're trying your best not to let him.
Yeah, I do think Mims would probably be my favorite Denver run back. Maybe this is the week that Judy they get him going after that like fiasco pregame on that Island game, like from Monday night, or did
Steve
you guys
Smith dunking on him? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or Steve Smith, yeah, that whole situation. Something I would imagine sees Jair. Yeah, I don't know, but in the context of cash, I think Tim's right. Marquise or Zay, I think those guys are fine.
It is funny to hear like Marquise Brown's like this safe cash game play, which I understand why it's being said, but like historically, that's not the player he's been. He's different this year, obviously, but typically he used to be kind of like, you know, in the past, he was kind of sort of this home run hitter, this sort of boom bust guy. Haven't said hello to chat just yet. What's up, chat? Kindly hit that like button. Do subscribe, turn on those notifications, do all those things. We much appreciate all that. Help us keep the proverbial lights on. We're still here for 3 hours. You got SquirrelPatrol, Erik Beimfohr coming in about 55 minutes or so. Kristi and Andre, as well as the Luch, come in as far as crunch time. Whatever's in your mind, whatever you want us to talk about, we're happy to do so. It's kind of a free-flowing conversation, but we wanted to have the cash game conversation. And then we sort of jump around. I'm curious where people are at. I want some hot takes in the chat. Let's see. Eric, well, here's a hot take. Eric Johnson, never disappointing as far as hot takes. Sam Howell for cash. Like, that just seems, Tim, like, why? It's so unnecessary. What is the upside in that? Like, what if you're actually right? Congratulations, you won your cash games. You were a 50-50 shot to win anyway. It just seems like a big unnecessary risk. If you want to play in formats, sure. Sam Howell? Howell for Washington?
Yeah. I don't really like that for cash games, to be honest with you. I think there are better guys that are just a little bit more expensive than Howell.
Do we like a cheap quarterback today? Like, I'm talking cheap quarterback, Hoyer. I'm seeing several people in the chat talk about Bagent. It's the second time people are talking about Bagent. He did have like ridiculous college numbers, but like he was playing against the steel line, from Kirkwood, from your Tournament Takes podcast there, Bobby. He was playing against dudes like Head Chopper. Does anybody know? Can anybody tell me what college he played for? I didn't know this. I'm not trying to make a smart aleck know-it-all. I had to hit the Google. I didn't know this college existed, for the record. Does anybody know where Bagent played college? Who can tell me?
Shepherd.
You Googled, you cheater. You didn't know this off the dome.
No, but I've heard it been discussed all week.
Shepherd. Who does Shepherd play? Like, who's the big rival of Shepherd?
I don't know what that is. I don't know where it is, but that's where
West Virginia. It's in West Virginia.
So yeah. you're the one that Googled it. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I said at the top. I said you didn't hear my qualifier. I very clearly said I'm not pretending like I knew this information. I used the old Google. I fired it up. Bagent, is this something we're doing? Hoyer, is this something we're doing? T-Mobile, right? Tygod? Is he still possible?
I think he's possible, maybe in large field. I would definitely play him over Hoyer for sure, but I don't have a ton of interest going up against that Washington defense.
Robert and G said in chat, my friend played football at Shepherd. It's very small. Yeah, there you go. shout out to Shepherd. I think they're the Rams. I want to say just kind of a bland match. I was hoping for something goofy.
For what it's worth, I do think Bajent has some rushing equity.
I'm trying to pull up his rushing stats in college. I don't know why.
I watched highlights. He had 0 rushing stats in college, but I watched highlights from preseason.
So you watch some game tape, Bobby?
Yeah, but I don't see why you wouldn't. I don't see why you wouldn't, because if you looked at his college rushing stats, you're not going to see anything. But he ran in the NFL, so
he let's see, 223 college rushes for 182 yards. And I know, like in college, the way they keep stats, I assume they do this at Shepherd as well. It's like when you get sacked, it's like negatives, like you can get negative rushing yards. So it doesn't look like he had his long. That's the NFL. We don't have the official his longest rushes there at Shepherd. But what makes you think he can rush now in the NFL?
Because of the preseason highlights I watched, Dean.
Okay.
Seen him run in a couple touchdowns. I think him and DJ Moore. So he threw 14 passes and 44% of them went to DJ Moore. So I think DJ Moore is actually in play in tournaments. I think just because of how starved we are on the slate, like if you wanted to play him, I think you could. Him, Tyrod. I think cheap quarterback works. Like I don't really love these guys up top, outside of really Mahomes. So,
and you only need a big guy.
What about Josh Allen, Bobby?
Yeah, I don't know. So I was under the impression that we had bad weather, but I'm looking out my window and it looks very nice. Very nice. I wish I was outside right now. So, yeah, the wind, it probably doesn't matter. Diggs, I guess he's fine. I think an interesting play in that game at the running back position. I know this is galaxy brain as can be, but Lat Murray at 4,700, I don't mind him just because I don't mind James Cook either. But I'm just saying if you're looking for savings, yeah, I think he's someone that I can throw into my player pool. Because his Patriots defense isn't the greatest. The Patriots defense also is someone that's in play for cash games at 2,100. Not to get off on a tangent, but it is very cheap and a very cheap price at defense. We know Allen's going to get sacked a good bit, not a good bit, but enough to where like a 2,100 defense can pay off. Yeah, in terms of playing Josh Allen, not really sure. Receivers for the Bills that have kind of killed the Patriots have been guys like Deontay Hardy or Harris, whatever his name is. He went to school at Assumption, so it's kind of like a homecoming for him. The issue is he lost snaps last week. I think his snaps came down pretty significantly. He is 3K. This is another larger field play. You're pretty much gambling if you're playing him and you're playing Josh Allen. Diggs is obviously the guy that is shredded. Everyone kind of has the idea that Diggs doesn't, or the Patriots take away the number one receiver, but with Diggs, that hasn't been the case. They've done really well. Diggs has done really well versus the Patriots. So if you want to play Allen and Diggs, like I think that's perfectly fine in tournaments. Everyone's under the thought process that you have to pay down a quarterback. The one quarterback, if you pay up for that no one's going to play, is Josh Allen, and he obviously can put up 30 fantasy points against anyone. So if you want to play Josh Allen, fine by me.
See, I love going Allen, Diggs, and then doing like a run back with like Kendrick Bourne. Like I really like that. I think that's going to go very, very low owned, and I think that the Bills can really just put it on this Pats team, and then the Pats are going to be forced to throw the ball. So guys like Bourne, I think, could easily pay off that $4,400 price tag. Obviously, not playing cash games, but I think in tournaments, I think that's really solid.
Somebody was just asking about Bourne in cash at 4.4. I saw a big spike in targets. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at the blitz, Bourne is the best points per dollar wide receiver on the entire slate. I mean, it's a little hot for me. It's a little hot for me. I guess if you can't get up to those guys in that 5K range, you know, like Deontay, like Marquise Brown, like Watson, I guess it's all right. But I would prefer getting up a little higher for cash.
I hate to think this matters, but like it might matter if Juju Smith-Schuster plays or not. Let's see. Like last I saw, he's like questionable. I can't remember what the line they said on him. Hunter Henry expected to play. Juju is unlikely to play. Okay, so I guess he's officially been ruled out. That happened 6 hours ago in the middle of the night, according to Rappaport. All right. Bobby, you're the resident New England guy. By the way, as of 9 minutes ago, Belichick signed an extension with the Patriots during the offseason. So, were you whoever?
Did you just say Bobby? Did you just say Bobby is the resident New England guy?
By location. He looks out his window.
I live in New England, Dean.
Yeah, but you live in Maine.
The whole area is New England. It's all New England.
I'm just saying. You've got two.
I don't think there's anywhere more off the grid than Maine in this entire country. Just to say.
Alaska. I think
Alaska. You're close, Bobby, but I think you're wrong.
Alaska. Yeah.
So you're more of a Patriot fan, I guess, Tim, than Bobby is, I suppose, right?
No, I'm a big Patriots fan, Dean.
Bobby is a complete homer. Bobby is a homer for sure.
I can't keep track of what he hates and what he loves.
I hate them, but I'm a fan. I hate them, but I'm a fan. Now, why would I like them? I want them to lose every game. If you're a fan of this team, you should not be rooting for them to win right
now. So does Juju being out elevate Bourne a little bit or enough to consider him? I guess he's the best run back. Unless you think it's Henry.
I can't believe we're talking about this, but I think it's Bourne and Stevenson that are actually guys that you can somewhat consider for being run backs. But do you really need a run back, a team total of what? 17? What's their team total, Dean?
16.5. You don't need it, but in order for the Bills to be pushed and to play, hard for 4 quarters, theoretically, you have to have a little bit of punchback for New England. Now, can Buffalo just 40-7 and just crush them for 3 quarters and whatever they put up in 3 quarters, that's good enough. Allen to Diggs, Allen goes 303 and Diggs catches 150 and 2. Sure. But ideally you want a little bit of a pushback on the New England side.
You want to play for New England? You want to play?
No.
No. But if Hunter Henry sits, play Gesicki at 2.6.
Yeah, look, this slate's bad. You're insulted. We're talking about these terrible Patriots. It's a bad slate, Bobby. This is what we're doing.
I get it. Cardi does have it pace up too, right? So it's something we have to kind of.
Let's see.
They're supposedly playing fast. I know the Bills are neutral, but GPP game factors has the Pats as kind of pace up, and no one's going to play Stevenson. No one's going to play Bourne. Yeah, they're going to be in my player pool. I think Bourne's in a range that there's a lot of opportunity cost. So, for me, if I can avoid playing him, I probably will.
I do also, it's a 1 o'clock game. How much does that matter? Because you talk about backloading a lot. You give yourself some some options, some swappability, especially if things crack a certain way. Especially if Metcalf is rolled out, all of a sudden maybe Seattle becomes a little bit more appealing. Not they're not appealing as is, but JSN, I guess specifically. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't really want Stevenson, but. Again, if you were, Rip Van Winkle in it and you went to sleep for a month and a half, you woke up and saw, Ramondre's 5'6". That seems too cheap. He's been underwhelmed. Zeke is actually taking away some of his touches, which is crazy. Bourne, I guess, is the best option. Not playing Parker. It's all nonsense. I guess you can play Henry. He's a little bit overpriced, but for that, you're also going to get him at 2% ownership. We probably are spending too much time,
right? Isn't he? Is he in, or what was the? I think he might have been questionable.
He's in. They said, according to Rappaport, should play as of 6 hours ago.
Okay.
Obviously
it was paired 6 hours ago, so I missed that.
I thought you were just waking up with your morning Dunkin'. No.
Definitely just waking up. I think 5 minutes before the show.
I saw you sipping. Was that a Dunkin'? Are you a Homer guy? Are you a Starbucks guy? Or are you off the board?
I'm a Homer guy. No, Homer. Dunkin'.
There you go. You like the new Ben Affleck commercials for Dunkin'? Have you seen those with the Ice Spice?
I don't know who Ice Spice is. Is she a plant? She has to be an industry plant, right?
I think she got popular on TikTok. Plant. I'm too old to know who she is.
Me too. That's what I'm. Well, I don't feel like I'm too old. I don't want to age myself. I'm not your age, Dean. Whatever age you are, I don't.
She was on SNL last week, and I'm like, okay.
I have no idea who she is.
Existence.
There's Sexy Red, I think her name is. There's another one. I have no idea who these people are.
Is that a pumpkin spice? Is that a pumpkin spice, Bobby?
No. What am I? White? What do you call it? What's it? Forget the every. I don't know. I forget what my girlfriend says. She just. Typical, I don't know. I forget what I was going to say. Never mind.
I see Tim is talking about lobster here in chat. We've been derailed in chat. Again, whatever comments, questions, we're happy to field them. General overarching
Basic white
questions.
girl is what I was gonna say. Yeah, basic white girl. The word basic. I don't know. I don't even use that. Like, I'm 33. I got stumped. Yeah, basic white girl.
All right, and
I could
Tim,
be a pumpkin spice. I'm not gonna lie though. I like pumpkin spice. Like, if you don't like pumpkin spice, I don't. You're not a pumpkin spice guy, Tim. This isn't pumpkin spice though.
It's only good in October. Like it's gross in like March.
Yeah, I'm not into pumpkin spice.
Are you guys? So do you guys drink? What do you drink? Iced coffee all year round or hot? What's the?
I do. I drink iced coffee.
I drink iced coffee all year round. Too,
yeah. I there's no way Tim doesn't have like his own like personal brew. He's got a contrarian like off the board. Like there's no way he's going to Starbucks. Is Starbucks in Maine? Have they broke ground?
We don't even
have
have
boys with me in chat. That's the first take he's liked that I've had, by the way.
Yeah,
I think he said he's a pumpkin spice guy too.
You probably don't know this,
We're
Bobby,
both
but this is a fun fact. Broccoli Boy is Tim's like best friend in real life.
Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
He's been trolling me for 3 weeks. You didn't think to tell him to stop trolling me? Wow.
He loves trolling me too. He's very much on Team Tim. He's very loyal.
Dean blocked him. Dean blocked him on Twitter.
Oh, he blocked him?
I don't know when this happened, but yeah.
I've never blocked anyone. So Dean would be a block guy.
No, I'm not. No, I don't want that reputation. I'm not that guy. That's the thing.
Don't be that guy, dude. That's the worst guy you can possibly be. I will never. I don't think I've ever blocked anyone. I'm pretty positive.
Have you ever muted anybody?
I mute all the time because I don't want to see a lot of people
blocking. It's basically blocking. They just don't know they're blocked.
No, they know they're blocked.
It's a passive aggressive block.
It's a passive block.
I've only blocked like 10 people ever, and so I was like, "There's no way I blocked the Broccoli Boy." It turns out I did. I did an investigation. I don't know what he did, but what he had to do was egregious.
I've never muted someone that that was responding to me like being, I don't know, abrasive. Like, I don't care. Like, people can say whatever they want. I've muted people that I just don't want to see what they're tweeting. Right.
Do you mute certain words? You can do that as well too, obviously, where it's like
I muted best ball for a good bit, and it's crazy because I'm a best ball tout, so how can you be best ball tout and mute the word best ball?
You got to stay in your bubble.
Yeah.
Hey, the Rams are without their first running back and their second running back, and I guess we're just not playing whoever's going to play today. Now, DK did not add Darrell Henderson to the price to the pool.
Right.
Earlier in the week, I know Zach Evans was like popping in models. And can I take this victory lap? I was one of the few people who not ranked Zach Evans. I'm like, this is nonsense. I did not rank him earlier in the week.
I ranked him.
I'm saying I saw right through it. I'm like, Zach Evans, he's not going to be the guy. Now he might be the guy. Who knows? We'll see. I don't think so. But it's just interesting that they're without their number one, number two running back. They're home favorites in a dome. And Royce Freeman, remember, he still plays football. And they brought in Henderson, who has no price. Also, Myles Gaskin, who may or may not be activated. We'll see.
I don't think he's active, Dean.
Okay, we don't know, but like he might be, but probably not, right? But do we care?
Yeah.
It's just interesting, Tim. We don't care, right?
Yeah. Now I don't think we care. I think now it's just a situation to stay away from. Unfortunately, I think this is just going to be a game where you're going to be focusing on your pass catchers, maybe a Stafford Cup stack if you want. That's about it. But I mean, I'm staying completely away from this running back situation. I've got at first I was like, oh, we can play Zach Evans at min price, but now it's at like I think he's gonna be number 3 on the pecking order. So I think that's the situation that I have to stay away from.
Bobby, we just Xing out the Rams. What are we doing as far as the running backs? We messed in the situation at all?
Xing out the Rams?
The running back situation, running backs.
If I could play Darrell Henderson, I'd play him, but DK didn't put him in the pool. In terms of Evans, I ranked Evans because he was hitting our projections. Like, he shouldn't have been hitting our projections, but I felt like I needed to rank him because he was hitting our stuff.
Yeah.
And then I left him in my expert survey for too long. And then I had to go back and I was like, why is Zach Evans in my expert survey?
Yeah.
Because I do my expert survey on like Wednesday, and I forgot to edit it.
You gotta update the content. Yeah, things change.
I gotta do it as quickly as possible. Yeah, so basically for me, the Rams, like I want to play them in tournaments. Cooper Kupp, I'm definitely going to be overweight on. I want to play this passing stack. I'm not playing Higbee. I will play Puka. I will play Tutu. The thing is, I don't want to play Stafford. Like, what are we getting from Stafford as a ceiling at this point? Like 15
303. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not great. I think Pickett is interesting in tournaments because, like I said, I like Deontay. I like Pickens kind of because I just like that game's in a dome and these totals are terrible. Yeah, in terms of Rams running backs, like if we could play Henderson, like I said at the top, I would play him. No Evans. I don't know what to do with Stafford. Like I want to leave him on my pool, but I like the receivers. I don't really think the stack has win equity. Hopefully I'm not gonna hate that statement at the end of the day because I'm leaning towards not playing him and just playing the pieces. How do you guys feel about that?
He's not super cheap, right? He's not super cheap, and Kupp and Nakua are expensive. So it's like, I agree with you. He should probably be like high fives, maybe 6K or something like that. Like you said, the floor is probably pretty good. Like I think he probably throws for 2 touchdowns, maybe 250. He's not going to like run anything in. You know, there's no tush push coming there for Stafford. So and like how does he beat you? What does it look like when Stafford beats you? You know, I don't know how that happens. He's fine, but like what's the ceiling? Tim, you have a thought there as far as Stafford?
So I think, we always kind of debate whether or not we should have like a run back. And when we pair a quarterback and a wide receiver, I think in this case, if you're going to play Stafford, you should definitely have a run back, whether it be Deontay Johnson or Jalen Warren. They're going to have to get pushed for Stafford to hit his ceiling. I think if I'm building 150 lineups like Bobby sometimes does, and Stafford's going to be 6% owned, I could see myself getting to like maybe 8% of Stafford, maybe slightly overweight the field, but I don't think I need to go too crazy with Stafford.
Got a question for you, Tim, from Michael. This is sort of your wheelhouse, like 1,000 entrants. It doesn't say if it's single entry or 3 entry max, but I'm going to assume, like considering it's like 1,000 entrants. How do you feel about playing Walker with Geno in tournaments, or build a rule to play 1? Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. I'd love to know if Metcalf is out, and then I think like I'm not running 150, but like I talked about this last week, I think with the Dolphins, like that's not a victory lap, but just like make sure you have at least 1 Dolphin in every single team, that kind of thing. And it's going to happen organically to some degree, but just sort of force it if you want to. But yeah, how do you feel about playing 1 Seahawk in every single team? And what about Walker and Geno, like in tournaments? Like, is that a negative correlation with those two? Like Walker can certainly catch the ball, but you're not necessarily relying on him. And Dallas might come in on 3rd down situations to get those pass catching situations. But it's only 1,000 people also. So Geno with Walker.
I don't think I want Geno and Walker, but I can certainly be on board with making a rule to play at least one of them for sure. I've got absolutely no issue with that. The Seattle-Arizona game is one of, if not my favorite games on the entire slate. So I have no issue getting a lot of exposure to that. I just think that I don't know how well Geno and Walker are going to correlate in terms of, Walker catching a pass TD.
You have a thought on that, Bobby?
27 implied team total. You made the case prior to the show that this is why you should probably get one of these guys on every team. I don't know if I'll do that. But yeah, I think that I may end up doing that because I don't know. Walker, I could lock button. So then I would be getting some Geno with Walker. I don't hate it, but I'm with Tim. Like I understand his thought process where it might be like to get leverage on the field. Do you want to play Geno adjacent from Walker because you can play the passing stack of JSN, Lockett? I think Noah Fant's in play in that game as well. So yeah, I get it. I just think Walker's in such a good spot. Maybe I should be kind of not looking to go full, like all in on Walker, but I don't know. Him and Kupp seem like plays like I just want to have. At the end of the day, like if I don't have them, I'm going to be like, why didn't I play those guys? It was pretty obvious.
Do you have anybody that you're sort of lock buttoning right now? Or you're kind of debating. You're talking about maybe Walker, and you're not afraid. Yeah, Kupp's your guy, 100%.
Yeah, McCaffrey was my guy last week, and by the end of the day, I was not happy. I will tell you. My single
first
entry
quarter,
team
you were happy, and then he got
what?
hurt.
First drive,
quarter, you were probably at it. Yeah.
First drive, I was ecstatic because I had him, I had Walker, and they both like scored the first 2 touchdowns of the slate. And I think McCaffrey had 14 points in the first drive, and it was like, all right.
I'm a little bit worried that
off.
I'm a little bit worried that DJ Dallas might eat into that kind of like third down work and get some of the receptions that we would want Walker to get if we paired him with Geno. So
yeah, I guess
I'm not really into pairing those two together.
I will say this. Like if the game script goes away from Walker and a guy like DJ Dallas is eating in, he's not a lock to be like on the optimal, right? He's still 7K. He still needs 100 yards and like a touchdown or 2 because he doesn't get a ton of pass game work.
See, I think the best way to get leverage on the field in that game is to fade Walker and then double stat Geno with like a Lockett, JSN, assuming Metcalf doesn't play. I think that's the best way to get leverage with that game.
But those guys can be popular though. You're saying leverage off of Walker, but those guys can be popular too. Like all those parts are going to be popular to some degree on Seattle though.
In the context of this slate though, what's the like what percentage of the time is that actually working? Because everything else is like so. I don't know. I feel like everything else is like to just try to make that, to try to use that leverage play. I think it just becomes very thin, in my opinion. I don't know. Just because you do have those other guys at high ownership.
Hey, Bobby, let's just finish this quarterback conversation. We didn't really talk about Mahomes at all and Herbert. What are we doing with that game? Or what are you doing with that game? You talk about spending down a quarterback. Are you sort of hoping it's going to be quiet? Is that where you're at on it?
I'm definitely playing Mahomes and Kelsey. Like, I think that stack works. I don't think you need to like overthink these other receivers. I think you can win like a large field tournament with a single stack. We've seen it done before with Mahomes and Kelsey. Mahomes has shredded San Diego. Kelsey shredded San Diego. I'm pretty sure that unless anything's changed in the time I was sleeping, Derwin James was questionable, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure. Is that not correct?
I can do a little Google search for you.
Yeah, but anyways, I think that like it's just fine to play those two. The guy I am worried about in that game is Keenan Allen. Gets a very tough matchup in the slot. I know I'm the no ball guy on the show.
James game time decision.
If Keenan Allen's going to be chalky, I'm probably going to be under. If he's not going to be chalky, I'll probably be over. He might not be chalky just because just everyone's moving to Lockett and these other, we're getting like, I don't know. I'm trying to think through that because if Metcalf is out, then he'll probably be steamed a little bit. I'm not sure. He was showing high ownership regardless. But it could go either way. For me, it would be Kelsey, Mahomes. I think Pacheco is bad chalk, even though he's increased in usage. His pass snaps are up. He's someone like, it hurts when I watch him run. Like, I feel like his knees are like pounding the ground. Have you watched him run? He's like one of the weirdest. I don't know. It's just like, I'd rather not play him if I could. Yeah.
You like Gibbs more? They're basically the same price.
Who?
Gibbs or Pacheco?
I think you can poke holes in both of them. Like, do we know Gibbs is getting the full workload? I know it's a great spot.
Big chunk we're expecting from the coach, at least.
Do you trust the coach? Well, I actually do trust that coach to like be honest in his, but usually I don't know. They also do weird stuff. Like they didn't give Swift the ball for 4 years. So, but he always said we're not giving the whole workload over to him. So if he's saying that he's giving Gibbs the ball, then he might be. I think I'd prefer Gibbs if I had to say it in a vacuum. But I think you have to consider the total for Pacheco. But if I have to like flag plan, I'm gonna go Gibbs. Yeah, I don't know. What's his name? Palmer. I think he's actually pretty good. That second receiver for the Chargers. He has more of a ceiling than what we realized. He had 2 touchdowns versus San Diego. He should have had a touchdown last week that was called back, which would have given him a higher ceiling, and projections would have shown higher ceiling for him over his career, just because that would have aggregated into like his full body of work. for me, I think he's in play. I like him a good bit. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty.
I think it's a little strange that we have Keenan Allen and Josh Palmer with both about 17-18% ownership as far as receiver ownership, and they are second and third as far as grabbing the most ownership. Zay Flowers getting the most, but it's pretty flat. Cooper Kupp only at 16%, Brown at 16-17%, Lockett at 15%. I do think Lockett would jump up if Metcalf is out and people will be swapping and pivoting to him. And like you said, Bobby, you're talking about a lot of guys, a lot of options in the late game, so there will be some pivots available to make some like 2v2s.
Can I read out this comment in chat from
go ahead.
Andrew Aburn? He said, while I was sleeping, the San Diego Chargers became the Los Angeles Chargers. That's a good one. A very good one. Very good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I still do that. Yeah, I still say the Oakland Raiders. Hey, speaking of the Oakland Raiders,
I respect that was a good comment.
Or the Vegas Raiders. Tim, Jawan's got a question. This is a utility question, I suppose. But so, right, the total of this game is not very appealing, 37.5. The team total for the Raiders is about 20 or so against the Bears. The Bears, not this great defense necessarily, but it's just how compacted like everything goes on for the Raiders. You just essentially know it's going to be Jacobs and Adams, and I guess Myers. Maybe Mayer will get a little more still, but it's really confined as far as the target tree. I know there's a squeaky wheel narrative for Davante Adams. He wants the ball for sure. He was also dealing with, I think, a shoulder or a rib, but I guess he's fine, or at least playing through it. Who do you prefer amongst those two, Jacobs or Adams? I assume this is in the flex, so I guess it has to be in the flex here, Tim.
Yeah, I guess it's Adams, but I mean it's pretty close, and there's a pretty significant price difference. There's an $800 price gap, so that really kind of depends on what you want to do with the rest of that salary. So, oh man, it's close. Josh Jacobs just seems to be so inefficient, even though this is probably a pretty good game for him. I like both of them. I think I'm gonna fall for the squeaky wheel narrative and go Adams, but it's close.
That's kind of where I'm at too, and I just think I like running back pieces as a jet, just better. I think the running back position is probably a little bit deeper than receivers this week, maybe the ones that I feel at least pretty good about. So
like,
I would.
Who do I think is going to get in the upper 20s or low 30s between those two? And I think Adams has the higher ceiling, so that's why I'm leaning Adams.
Yeah, Jacobs could touch the ball 25 times, but Adams can break a 70-yarder also. And I feel like he gets a long one today. I don't know. We'll see. I know Brian Hoyer's like a professional quarterback, though. As like backups go, he's not spectacular, but it's a professional quarterback. He's competent back there. So he's kind of sort of somewhat, okay, I guess. And he might be better than O'Connell. Who knows? O'Connell, I know a lot of people like him long term. Receiving wise, I was talking about the chalk. Any good chalk, bad chalk there, Bobby, when it comes to some receivers I was throwing out there? It's pretty flat. We have it really flat. Nobody getting more than 20% right now. This is for large field. It's not for single entry or for cash or for 3-entry max. That stuff's gonna be different. But the ownerships were like a large field. Flowers, Palmer, Allen, Brown, Kupp, Lockett, Watson at 15, McLaurin, Scary Terry, Nakua at 13%. I like Cooper a good bit. 12% seems pretty interesting. And if you're playing some Watson, I think Cooper is the obvious person to tie him to. Of course, Njoku is another guy we talked about earlier. But is anybody in that grouping that sort of stands out to you, Bobby? You're like, I'm going to be well over or well under as far as the more popular receivers as we see it right now?
I don't love Marquise Brown. Maybe that's a bad take, but I just think he's the natural run back, and we're getting so much ownership to the guys that on the Seattle side who we like, and it's super concentrated. Like, I'd probably try to get away from Marquise. Wow, Joshua Palmer's up there too at 4.8, huh? Yeah, I don't know. I think Marquise would be the one I'd be the most skeptical on. But Terry McLaurin's in a good spot. I like Curtis Samuel a good bit. I think he's in a really, like, where he's running routes, it's just really beneficial to Howell targets. Yeah, so I don't mind McLaurin either. Like, McLaurin's fine. No one's going to play McLaurin. 14% really isn't chalk, though. Like, when we're talking about chalk, we're worried about, like, guys that are getting up to 20%. I think Marquise will get inflated. just because we have all this news surrounding Seattle, and he's the natural run back, and people still think backs are warranted. So I'll definitely be under on Marquise. I'm pretty positive.
You got any takes there, Tim, amongst those guys I threw out there, as far as the more popular grouping of receivers? Somebody you feel, you're going to gravitate to, or somebody you feel like it's just not going to hit your 3-entry max lineups?
I think for me, it's Zay Flowers. Like, we have him projected as the highest owned wide receiver, and that's chalk. I'm glad to fade. I guess obviously he can burn me, but I think that price range is so loaded. I see no reason to eat that much chalk. So I think Zay Flowers would be the guy for me that I'd be staying away from in a single entry or 3 max setting. So I think he's just too highly owned for me right now.
Is there somebody that's again, we have a JSM right now at 7%, and of course that can change if the Seattle news goes a certain way. If Metcalf doesn't play, I think he'll become popular. People are going to pivot to it. Is there somebody that's kind of less than 10%, Tim, that you're looking at that might be one of your potential difference makers today that can separate you from the field for the better or for worse?
Michael Pittman. So if I'm looking to get to some of these Cleveland players, I do want to get to a run back, and Michael Pittman on both our projections and the Blitz are showing Pittman at like 6% owned. So he's definitely a guy that I think is worthy to take shots on in any format. He has shown very, very consistent targets throughout the season. He got 14 targets last week, 7, 5, 11, 12, and 11. I mean, he's a target hog. So, and he's in this really, really funny price point. He's not in that mid 5K range where we're seeing a lot of shit flock to, and he's not really expensive like guys like Allen and Cup. So I think Michael Pittman is a very big time difference maker on the slate.
If I'm making a Cleveland Indianapolis stack, I got Watson, Cooper, and Njoku. What if I don't have the salary for Pittman? Is it okay if I run it back with Downs? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean that's fine. Definitely, I've been really high on Downs all season long. 4,500, looking at 2% ownership. I have no issue with that at all.
Bobby, who have we not talked about today that like you see him popping up in your lineups right now? Like what have we not? It's a 10-game slate, not a lot of games, right? And it feels kind of small. Let's see, what have we not really talked? Atlanta, Tampa, we've not talked about at all. Maybe for good reason. 37.5 is a total. White is kind of sort of in play at 5-1, pretty cheap. Mike Evans and everyone we know, it seems like he breaks the slate like once or twice a year. Maybe it's this year. We've seen Ritter like throw the ball a lot. It's not in the dome here. It's in Tampa. It's in the heat here in Florida. Kyle Pitts has come alive, but also that price has jumped up all the way up to 4K. It's kind of expensive for a tight end. Bijan Robinson, we're waiting for it. We're still waiting for it, but he's just splitting too much there with Algier to make him like super appealing. But certainly he can break one for 70 yards, would not shock us. But is that one of those games that like we're ignoring and we should be ignoring it? What have we not talked about that we should kind of highlight?
Yeah. I like Brian Robinson a good bit. These Washington running backs, I think, are in a really good spot. But I'm just like, if is this a game that the Giants are going to win? It's going to flip to Antonio Gibson at 4-7 because they're like extremely splitsy when the game script kind of goes the other way. Although Brian Robinson has been utilized in the passing game more. So at 5'8", I think he's fine. The Giants have really struggled versus the run. Bijan, I think this is the week he comes alive. I just don't know how I'm going to be able to fit him.
Yeah.
I think he's an interesting pivot off Josh Jacobs at 7-4. He's in a price. He's pretty much in like no man's land in terms of pricing. Who else? I wanted to continue the Josh Downs, Michael Pittman conversation because I do think it's kind of important just because Cleveland Browns, the reason they're so low owned is the Cleveland Browns secondary has been fantastic, right? Downs is a very difficult matchup. So does Pittman. Who do you choose between the two? I'm with Tim. Like, I think you want to run it back if you're playing that game in tournaments. I think I would prefer Downs because of his price to Pittman. Just because at that price tag, like the 9 targets that he's seeing so many targets, it's really Pittman, the opportunity cost at 6K, I think becomes an issue. So I think I'm on the other side of Tim on that one. Like, I think I'd prefer Downs. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much the guys that I'm thinking that we haven't talked about that kind of really stand out for me. And Michael Wilson, going back to who we kind of talked about. I think you want to play Michael Wilson today on the Arizona Cardinals at 3-8.
Let's see. Amon-Ra. You like Amon-Ra today against Baltimore? We didn't talk about Lamar. I think Lamar is one of the more interesting quarterbacks today. He's had some bad luck as far as his receivers dropping passes, but with Dobbins going down or the running back situation being kind of a mess, we've seen Lamar run the ball even more. This Detroit defense has been pretty good, but Lamar's getting some design runs, and Zay Flowers has been spectacular, and that price probably still should be a little bit higher. Andrews, I know we don't really have the money necessarily to spend up on tight ends, but for sure, Andrews is a guy that couldn't, and we haven't really seen that Mark Andrews game this year, but maybe it's coming. I like Lamar probably more than most. On FanDuel, by the way, for what it's worth, we're talking a lot of DK and FanDuel. He's probably your cash game quarterback. I don't know if you guys are playing cash over on FanDuel, but just the way salaries
he's definitely the cash game quarterback on FanDuel. He's gonna be super popular on FanDuel.
Yeah, and that's gonna bleed into tournaments as well. He's gonna be pretty popular too. It's still quarterback, but just understand, like if you're playing single entry, 3 entry stuff on FanDuel, Lamar is probably the most popular quarterback in those contests. But yeah, does anybody have a thought on this Baltimore-Detroit game? And again, I feel like it'd be much more popular if it was in Detroit. It's not. So this is where we're at. Yeah. Who's got to take as far as Detroit, Baltimore? I don't want to just throw it.
I love Amon-Ra, and he's not showing a lot of ownership, which is amazing for a guy who's projected for 10 targets. So I think he's a fantastic tournament play at under 10% owns. I'm always for Amon-Ra, especially at low ownership. But I don't really know what to do with this Baltimore situation. Like, I don't know if I could just play like a naked Lamar. I don't know if that's I know Zay Flowers is going to be the chalk. I'm not really a fan of playing a chalky Zay Flowers. So I think my initial lean would just to play maybe naked Lamar, or in a tournament build, play Lamar with Mark Andrews. That would be my lean for larger field tournaments.
Is Jameson Williams another guy we're considering at 3-8? I know he caught a big pass last week, but I think he's still not getting enough targets, right? Theoretically, they should be coming up at some point, but he's cheap, and he also has talent, and he just needs one big catch, right, to get there. I'm just trying to think of like the cheap receivers, and Detroit has one, but he's just not really getting enough usage. Bobby, what's your thought as far as Detroit and Baltimore?
I really like the Amon-Ra call by Tim. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Eric Johnson was just saying he thinks he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. I think he's very good too. He's someone I'm going to be over on if I can make it work at 8K. Interesting. Jameson Williams only 9 routes. I think that picks up though. Where it picks up to, if it picks up to 22%, do I still want to play some Jameson Williams? Not really sure about that. Nelson Aguilar at 3.9, seeing a lot of snaps. I will say, I know this is a watch the tape type of call, but Odell almost housed a slant last week in that Jacksonville game. And I don't know if they maybe the coaches see that on tape and like, we got to get him involved more in the short area passing game with the wind being what it is. Like, I don't know. He showed that he very nearly broke away. So maybe it's a different narrative on Odell, but we do have Aguilar showing. Aguilar obviously played a ton more snaps. I'm just saying that
they're all cheap.
They're all cheap.
About them.
Yeah. I just don't want to. I don't feel comfortable playing Aguilar like in stacks with Lamar, even though he is playing the snaps that he's playing. I'd probably just defer to Odell if I was playing Lamar stacks, but I don't think I'm getting to Lamar stacks. Like I think Mark Andrews is my favorite. I'm with Tim. Like I'd probably want to be under on Zay Flowers. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't love this game. Maybe I should be looking more into it.
By the way, wanted to mention, we're going to be ramping up because the NBA season right around the corner. Not Monday, but it starts on Tuesday night. Tuesday night, the NBA season, the NBA DFS. It is back with it, the amazing suite of premium offerings here at RotoGrinders. For a limited time, you can lock in a full season of RG Premium, $50 discounts, everything from lineup HQ access with up-to-the-minute premium projections and ownership and everything else. You have the fantasy pick'em tool for prize picks and underdog if you're on those kind of streets. Check out the link in the description for more information. We'll go ahead and have producer Steve probably drop the link in chat. It'll be in the description as far as the video. Also, if you're not aware, I assume you're aware, but just in case you aren't, we do live shows for basketball, 7 days a week. I believe it'll be 7 days a week, depending on, but Tuesday night, depending on when the schedule starts. I think it's a 7:30, but we'll be on, Tuesday talking some basketball, Wednesday, massive slate, opening the week. It's like 2 games, 12 games, 2 games, 12 games. We didn't get those uneven. We got those uneven slates to start the season, but happy to have basketball back. And hey, if you don't want to go ahead and spend the money, you can actually win your way in. You can win your way and get yourself a month free of RotoGrinders Premium. And Premium would include not just NFL, not just college football, but NBA as well. PGA streets, everything you can think of, with the exception of NASCAR a la carte. How do you do that? There are still a few spots remaining. I'm going to go ahead and drop this link in the chat. I referenced them earlier in the show, the Pick Six show. If you finish first in that, you get yourself a month free of RG Premium. So good luck on that. I believe last I saw there was several spots remaining. So jump in there. It's only $5. It's a regular contest on DK that I set up. And just if you take it down, hit me up in the old Twitter, slide in the DMs, and we'll get yourself we'll get you juiced up with a month free of RG Premium. Let's see some other questions in chat. In about 5-10 minutes or so, we're going to yield to SquirrelPatrol, Erik Beimfohr as well. Trying to see what we have missed, what we have not talked about. I do think we have an update as far as ownership. Let's see. As of 10 o'clock, is that the most up-to-date we have? Bobby, who's like your biggest fade today? Maybe it's a team, maybe it's a game, maybe it's a stack, a particular player. Is there one thing you're just like, you know what? I'm not going to play this, and if it beats me, so be it. Or have very little.
I'm not really sure. Like Stafford, maybe. I don't even know if that counts because I don't think he's going to be that chalky. I just don't think that stack is the greatest to win. Like I think people think it is. And I just don't think Stafford can put up a winning score at this point in his career. We didn't talk about Aaron Jones, which is crazy. I think Aaron Jones like big leverage off of all those guys that.
Do we think he's a full go? Right, he's not officially in, but like assuming he's a good go, and I think the note was basically as long as he doesn't have a setback, he's good to go and he's going to play. Do we think he's a full go? And if he is, I agree with you. I think he's a spectacular pivot. And obviously, if you're playing him, you're playing for the upside and assuming that he's going to get 25 or so touches. Nice matchup against Denver. Is that you're just going to play him and hope that it's like he's healthy and perfectly fine? There's no issue as far as I think it was a hamstring.
Yeah, I think I'd just play him. I wouldn't play AJ Dillon, even though this matchup is pristine. Like this is a fantastic matchup, but AJ Dillon is just very, very bad at football at this point. So, yeah, I think I'm interested on AJ, and with everyone kind of concerned with what to do with Seattle, maybe AJ gets overlooked, although it is the same kind of time slot, but people more backload for Metcalf news right now. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that would draw people on AJ if Metcalf is out. I don't know. I think AJ is a very good play. I mean, not AJ. Sorry, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones on AJ Dillon. Yeah.
Tim, you're boldest fan. I know you don't make 150 lineups, whatever. Like you're concentrating in the 3 entry max stuff, or like just like single entry, and then you kind of ride it. So you essentially hone in on what you like. But theoretically, if you were running a bunch of lineups, or just like maybe somebody that's going to be chalky in your 3 entry max contest that you're just not going to be on, well, who's the one that you're most afraid of beating you? Who's the player that you're just kind of scared of not having enough of?
At which position? Any position?
Yeah, dealer's choice.
Well, Zay Flowers is one. Probably Keenan Allen might be another one because I know that I'm prioritizing Cup, but Keenan Allen is in a great spot. and he has just been honed in and on fire. And I think that game is a really great game to build into. I don't know how much of it I can get into that game, so I'm a little bit worried about Keenan Allen. Zay Flowers, definitely. See, running back, I'm so unsure about. I'm not really sure who I'm worried about not having because I'm not really set on who I have yet. Still kind of making my decision about Jerome Ford. So, definitely, I do like Bobby's call on Aaron Jones, though. I think we want to attack Denver, right? So I think Aaron Jones at that price point is going to go a little bit forgotten. So I really like that take for large field stuff.
Bobby, I know on your Tournament Takes podcast, you're a specialist when it comes to, they always yield to your defensive takes. Donnie in chat wants some defensive takes, having trouble locking in on some. You mentioned earlier New England is just like a flat out punt, like 2-1 on DK. Kansas City is going to be probably pretty popular in there. You don't really want to pick on the Chargers necessarily, but KT's got a good defense. They're probably going to be playing from ahead, and that's when the goofiness, the more opportunities for dropbacks, 40 times running the ball. You're probably not going to get a pick six for sure. I guess you can get a fumble six, I suppose, but yeah, defense. Where are you at, Bobby? Is there any big stands you're taking? And KC, probably is going to be your cash game defense. I think that's where your cash game is going to be, just salary wise. On FanDuel, the Giants are hitting some stuff just because they're so cheap, and Howell just takes like 9 sacks a game, give or take. And I know the Giants defense is not something you want to be attached to, but it is cheap. What do you have, Bobby, as far as defense today?
Yeah, Chiefs, Giants, Pats. I think those all make sense. I think you can make a case for the Ravens at 2-5 versus Jared Goff on the road, where we've seen the splits have been pretty drastic for the majority of his career prior to last week, where he played very well on the road. Patriots at 2-1, like the salary savings, it's just very good for, I don't know. There's not a ton to spin up for on the slate outside of Cooper Kupp. Like 2-1's good for the Pats though. Yeah, that's pretty much, those are like my flag plans for defense.
Raiders seem a little bit overpriced, but like that's going to get them, unowned, and this quarterback for the Bears, who knows what to expect out of him. So certainly kind of sort of somewhat interesting. Seattle, I think, is kind of in the sweet spot at 3-2 versus Arizona. That feels pretty good to me on DK, but high variance when it comes to defense. You have a defense take, Tim, or it's just whatever you're sort of falling into? Anything jump out for you?
I think maybe I think the Giants, if you can get that high, just because Howell takes so many sacks. But I don't think I could get up to 3K. I don't know. It's pretty tough. It's pretty ugly. I don't mind punting all the way down to the Patriots and hoping that another defense doesn't separate itself, that it crushes you. And then I think the Chiefs also are kind of in that same boat. But I'm not going to prioritize. I'm not going to go after one particular defense and say I have to have this defense.
Tim, Dave's got a question for us. Let's see, Dave Barton in chat. Lockett or Godwin? I don't think you mentioned Godwin all show. Who do you prefer amongst those two?
I mean, in a vacuum, it's definitely Lockett, right? But I mean, he is going to be way higher owned, but I still think he's a better play.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. He's the better play, and he could get even better, even stronger.
Exactly.
If we see Metcalf not play.
Exactly.
Bobby, people? You got a guy? Do you have any inside sources? Do we know if Metcalf is playing?
No idea. I think he plays. If you had to ask me, but yeah, I don't know. No clue.
You never really know. With speaking of coaches lying, Carroll's like notorious for being one of the bigger liars, I think, in Seattle. I don't know. It's sort of a tricky situation. And we don't know.
Carroll might just have dementia at this point. How old is he? He's got like 86, right?
He's in incredible shape. I think he's still surfing. He's still chewing his gum. He's in his 70s, I believe. But for 70, I don't know if he's married or not, but he could be the next Golden Bachelor for all I know. I don't know. Have you been watching?
Are you a Golden Bachelor guy, Dean?
You didn't know that? That's all he talks about. That's all he talks about on every show.
I have not watched an episode of The Golden Bachelor, but I'm aware of its existence.
My girlfriend.
I thought they shot too hot.
The other day. I walked in the living room and it was like the Simpsons gif where the grandfather walks in and walks out. That's pretty much what I did. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like they should have done like 40s and 50s. But I think it's doing well in the ratings. People don't care about this, but they're like 60 and 70 years old, right? I guess it's golden. So they reckon they're 70s, I believe, The Golden Bachelor. I'm not sure.
I don't want to watch any second of that. I hate reality TV. Like, I am a firm stand against reality TV. The Challenge is the only show I'll watch.
The Challenge. There you go. Yeah. Those guys have been doing that's like their career now, right? They've been doing it for like 20 years, I believe.
Yeah, that's their career. Yeah. I don't know why I got into it. I never liked it. My girlfriend got me into it. I don't know. It's not bad.
And I think most of them were born out of like the Real World and Road Rules like many years ago. But I think they added some new players. I don't know. I stopped watching many years ago, but I know the people love it. And like, are you in the pool? I know there's like pools going on online, and you partake in that or no?
I know a bunch of DFS guys watch it. I don't know. Are they doing pool? So, yeah. No, I'm not in, but I know a bunch of people that are into it, I guess.
Michael in chat saying The Golden Bachelor. Yeah, he's 71 apparently in chat. So there you go.
Like you didn't know that, Dean.
I did not.
What if they have like a death on the show? Like it's in play, right?
I guess it's in play. Yes. I mean, then you're eliminated. I don't know. I'm sure they have a contingency plan, I imagine, but yeah, you're a big Mass Singer guy according to the chat. Now we're derailing the show before we get to. We're going to have Erik Beimfohr. We're going to have SquirrelPatrol jumping in momentarily. They're going to ramp things up.
Coming out in the Mass Singer, they pull the mask off, and it's Dino.
Okay, so I don't want to go on a rant here, but I'm aware of the Mass Singer, and I'm aware of somebody like has had me like watch the Mass Singer, and the most tilting thing in the world is like Ken Jeong and like Jenny McCarthy, whoever it is. I don't know how I know those are the panelists, but they are the panelists. But they're like, the concept is, you don't know who it is, just some famous celebrity allegedly, right? Air quotes, and they're like, oh, I think it's Jay-Z. No, it's Taylor Swift. Like, there ain't no way Jay-Z's gonna be the Masked Singer. Like, are you serious? They're just like saying big names just to say big names. There's no way Jay-Z's. It's like, the dude from Different Strokes is gonna be on the show. Like, what are you talking about? It's not gonna be Jay-Z. Like, that sounds like Beyonce. Yeah, it's definitely.
Have they ever had like a celebrity that was actually like?
No,
right? Yeah.
They're all like fringe, like whatever. Like, it's insane, like the names they throw out there. Like, it got me so angry. Like, because this is what I need to do when I'm about to build lineups. But Beimfohr, you a big Mass Singer guy? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you get roped in on this with the wife?
No, luckily I get roped into plenty of things. The Masked Singer is not one. I have watched lots of The Bachelor. We haven't done the Golden Bachelor yet, so we're fingers crossed we don't get roped into that one as well. I'm on team Bobby here, and I will say I watched lots of Real World and Road Rules back in the day, and I think that's what led into the challenge. So I still like that. No Masked Singer, none of this other nonsense that's totally made up. Like you said, at least like the challenge stuff, like it's an actual, like it's dumb, but it is like a challenge, like they're doing something. The Masked Singer is, like you said, it's made up, and these aren't even like the reveals, like, oh yay, like what did I just waste this time for? This, I don't even know who this guy is.
Antonio Brown, I think, was in the Masked Singer, for the record, to tie it back into football. I'm pretty sure
that's about right.
Yeah, I think he was on there, but it wasn't Jay-Z. Would you believe it? He was busy. All right. We got anything else before we step aside and get out of here? We got to yield to Beimfohr and Squirrel. Tim, do you have a hot take for the people? This is what producer Devin, producer Steve, they're going to be cutting this. When this turns correct, this is going to go out to marketing, and it's going to look how sharp Tim is. So no pressure, Tim, but give us what's going to break the slate. What's going to win the people millions of dollars today?
Amon-Ra, St. Brown. 8 catches, 150, and a touchdown.
Bobby, see that and raise it.
Michael Wilson, touchdown, 100 yards for Arizona.
All right, that was Bobby. That was Tim. I was Dean. Beimfohr, take it away.
Well, John, normal intro, I would, lead in, hey, welcome to GPP Final Takes. I'm shook by the fact that we popped on and there was not an ounce of football talk it was nothing but reality TV. And now I'm really thrown off here from the fact that we just discussed the Masked Singer and the Golden Bachelor and the challenge and everything for 20 minutes.
So, like, we talk about a lot of, like, injury contingencies on our show, and I didn't expect, like, what do they do if somebody dies in the Golden Bachelor? I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I guess you go to the third string Bachelor. I don't know.
I lost it. I was dying when he said, well, Dean said so matter-of-factly, too, and no one laughed. Like Bobby said, like, a death is in play, right? What happens if the guy dies? And Dean just goes, well, I think he gets eliminated. And I was just like, I do think he'd probably be eliminated.
Get him out of your Golden Bachelor lineup.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that was really funny. I apologize for the anarchy. Marier, Bryant, everybody, Eric with a C in the chat. Thank you for joining us. This is, of course, GPP Final Takes. I am your host, Erik Beimfohr, joined by my always co-host, John Breslin, aka SquirrelPatrol, aka one of the best DFS players in all of the land. And this slate is interesting, I will say, to me. I know that's the cheap word that everybody uses all the time. But on this show, for those folks who have not joined before, we don't necessarily go game by game. We don't necessarily go position by position. We kind of try to hit all the keynotes, right? The big bullet points that you need to cover for this tournament slate. I sort of struggled. Normally, I know coming in, right? Last week was like, oh my gosh, all these running backs are out. We have, a 2017 DFS slate with the cheap running backs. How do you handle this chalk, etc.? You had the Dolphins, like you brought that up at the beginning of last show. It's like, okay, you better figure out what to do with the Dolphins because they're going to score, a lot of points today. I don't have like a super duper strong theme today. I feel like there's lots of good plays. There's lots of things certainly that we need to discuss. What is your kind of overarching theme? Like when I go into this slate, here's the thing I need to focus on first in terms of attacking it for tournaments.
Yeah, I think it's like the thing that strikes me when I first looked at the slate, slate context is only 10 games and like no points. Like I opened my Friday show with JM to win saying like, well, there's no points going to be scored. We might as well just go on. But, obviously, somebody is going to score points. We are we're evolving into like almost NBA with the injury news. So like, which is right on time. We've got, some guys that are game time decisions, some guys in the afternoon games that I think we still don't have clarity on. I do think similar to my Miami take from last week, people are maybe starting to overlook the Chiefs because we're starting to get this like a lot of injury news. Like, oh, is this guy in, this guy out? This guy's mispriced. This guy's not even on the slate on DraftKings, but he is on FanDuel, kind of thing. And like, well, there is a team that's supposed to score like 26 points. That's about 10% more than any other team on the slate. They're expensive, but like we should maybe keep an eye on them too in the afternoon slate.
I like that. That game is interesting because, as you said, and we'll get to your questions. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. We'll try to hit as many of your questions as we can, and then the crunch time folks after us will handle any that we don't get to. But it is interesting. As you mentioned, lots of gross games. Like, look, we're going to have to play some guys in gross games. It just kind of is what it is on this slate. As you mentioned, we got bye weeks. We luckily don't have a London game this week. Otherwise, we'd be working with a 9-game slate. It'd feel like a primetime slate, especially with how low scoring these games are. But I do find it interesting that I'm not saying that the Charger side is like overwhelmingly chalky. But if you like go into lineup HQ, which I'm trying to pull up, it's loading here. And you look at that game, right? The highest scoring game. Clearly, that game just sticks out on this slate, Chiefs-Chargers. But the Chiefs actually kind of have a good defense and actually have been really shutting a lot of teams down, including good offenses. And the Chargers are the ones that are getting all the ownership in terms of that game, whereas the Chargers have kind of a crappy defense, and the Chiefs, like you said, are a superstar offense. We don't necessarily know where it's going, right? Besides Travis Kelce, sort of Isaiah Pacheco, I know he's getting plenty of ownership, but I do find it interesting that beyond Pacheco, you're not getting anything from the Chiefs, like ownership wise, and that's like the one thing. If you had to line up today and say there's one team that's going to score a bunch of points, I would put my money on the Chiefs, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't have a ton of Chargers. I think Joshua Palmer is like a value piece. I'm not like super high on him because you said, you have a really good defense. Like Justin Watson is out. It's not like the biggest injury, but that maybe removes one from that that stable of wide receivers that we never were able to pick from. Although I guess we added McCall Hardman at least on. I think he's definitely in the DraftKings slate. He might have been added late on FanDuel. I'm not sure. But we do have Mahomes. He hasn't been putting these outlier scores up like he has in years past. But I mean, he's been doing decent, right? He's been scoring some points. We have Travis Kelce, who fits that tight end position. It's just everybody's really expensive. And Rashee Rice is coming on a little bit. Maybe not a wide receiver. I'm looking to get in like 50% of my lineups, but you can make a stack there work, and you don't necessarily need to run it back with any Chargers.
Yep, I totally agree. But you also can run it back with Chargers. Yeah. Like you said, it's probably tough, right? Mahomes, Kelce, Rice, MVS, whatever you want to do. And then Eckler and Keenan are tough. And that does lead you into like a chalky Josh Palmer as like a bring back. And then he's also going to be like, we talk about ownership, right? But then we also there's combinatorial ownership, meaning Josh Palmer is going to be popular. But then when people play like Mahomes, Kelce, and they're looking for a bring back, it's probably Josh Palmer because you can't necessarily afford Eckler, Keenan Allen, etc. So just some things to take into account. I want to hit some questions here, and then I want to dive into the running back position, because I think with the fact that there's only 10 games, the fact that, as you mentioned, the games are really, really gross, it's a very thin running back pool. We've actually been kind of lucky, I feel like, for a good chunk of this year with a pretty deep running back pool, actually, despite the fact that like there's committees everywhere across the league and injuries and all this different stuff. I feel like we've had a lot to choose from at running back. I mean, we talked about like 15 guys last week. I don't feel that way this week. Let's just say that much. So we'll get to the running backs here in just a second, but I want to hit your questions. We can just come out with some straight heat from Big Hurt 828 Flowers. That is an interesting doozy of a name. I like the username, but with Flowers at the end. I don't know if your Flowers is your last name or if there's a story to the fact that Flowers is included there, but interesting. If you had to play one, stack quarterback plus a pass catcher on FanDuel, who is your favorite?
So it's probably going to be Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, and
that's fitting. That's fitting. Yeah. Well, look at what this name. Yeah.
It's really hard to get away from Lamar on FanDuel. I think you could go either way. I think the argument against it is I think Lamar is going to be super highly owned. He's just one of my favorite plays on FanDuel because he is never priced up as much as he should be. And those rushing yards, rushing touchdowns count so much more relatively on FanDuel. And I think people overlook that. And so much of the content is DraftKings focused that I get a little bit less worried about high ownership on FanDuel. Because like a lot of people are just reading content. A lot of the content is biased towards DraftKings. And like Lamar Jackson should be the highest owned quarterback on FanDuel. So it's one of the situations where I'm comfortable eating the ownership, like particularly in single entry. I don't think he'll be the highest owned quarterback, but I don't think it's justified. He should be the highest owned quarterback. So just in terms of my favorite stack, I think it's it's a Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Jahmyr Gibbs, and then you can like sprinkle in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Mark Andrews if you'd like from that game as well.
I love it. Just to piggyback on that, Eric asks any of the OBJ or Rashad Bateman or Justice Hill or Gus Edwards or anything else from the Ravens that you like?
I think you can go Odell Beckham. And like that's a Millie Maker lineup. Like if you want to put a $5 OBJ lineup in there with Lamar Jackson, I think that's great because I do think Zay Flowers is going to see a ton of ownership. And so like what if OBJ gets a touchdown or even two? It's conceivable. And so I think that's like a fine Millie Maker play. I don't think I'd necessarily go there as single entry. Like that's probably more off the board than you would need to for say like 1,000-person single entry contest or something like that. But like for the Millie Maker, sure. Yeah. Like swap out OBJ for Zay Flowers. Go for it.
Pretty good leverage there. I will add, I mean, this is not something sneaky by any stretch of the imagination, but love Mark Andrews on FanDuel in particular, as you mentioned. I'm guilty of this too. I mean, sometimes we even get it in the chat, like, have they talked FanDuel or whatever? And I want to make sure we do a good job because I know lots of people play FanDuel. I do personally play a little more DraftKings than FanDuel. So I do fall into that hive mind, if you will, like you mentioned, where content is focused that way. I'm playing a little bit more over there. And so you also are like analyzing the week, right? From a content perspective, people are like, who are the best matchups and all of that. And that is important, but it's a salary cap game and pricing is different on both sites, and, you know, positions are different and all that different kind of stuff. Not so much for NFL, obviously, but other sports. And I think that it really, really is different. Half PPR, it's hard to describe actually how different half PPR is to full PPR plus bonuses. And as you mentioned, I don't know if this is a hot take. I feel like Lamar, I understand he hasn't put up super duper monster games so far this year. I feel like he should be the highest priced quarterback, or right there with Josh Allen, him and Josh Allen as the highest priced quarterbacks on FanDuel because of that rushing. And Josh Allen is still running, but not quite to the level that he has from a ceiling perspective. And, you know, today I wouldn't necessarily expect that he, you know, breaks out the old school Josh Allen, but you never know against the Patriots. And so I just think I'm glad that we got that question. I'm glad you hit the FanDuel thing and also hit the ownership part of Lamar Jackson, where it's really easy. And I also fall into this trap sometimes, saying like, oh, this guy's going to be really popular, or this guy's going to be the chalk, right? And it's not about just raw ownership. Like, let's just say Lamar's 20%, right, on the FanDuel single entries. That doesn't mean you have to fade just because he's 20%. It's possible his efficient ownership should be higher than that. You can be a really good plus EV play at high ownership, depending upon what you should be owned, right? And 8K Lamar Jackson on FanDuel probably should be very popular. So just because he is popular doesn't make him a bad play. And that's a very hard balancing act. You know, I'm not as good at it as guys like you are, but I think that's the thing that does get lost sometimes. You know, we get to Sunday mornings and you're like, oh, that guy's chalk, I got to fade the chalk. And it doesn't necessarily work that way.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that's my article that I've been writing, the Squirrel's Nuts, you know, where basically taking a look at the quarterbacks and taking a look at the optimal stack tool that we have and saying like, well, this guy is over his optimal percentage or under his optimal percentage. And like sometimes we've had a couple situations pop up this year already where, yeah, a quarterback will be the highest owned quarterback and he's still not owned as much as he should be. And so that's something to keep in mind. And I think that is a better way to play than being like, well, I've got to fade the chalk. You don't always have to fade the chalk. Like sometimes you want, like there's a bunch of lineup spots you can get different. Choose one of the other ones.
Yes. 100%. That's why, yeah, like you said, our optimal stacks. Many years ago, we built Slate IQ with that exact thing in mind. It works really well for showdown in particular, finding which players and combinations of players and roster constructions, right, are over or under owned. Like you said, it could be the highest owned thing, but it's not owned enough. And so I just wanted to hammer that point really quickly here at the start of the show, because there's lots of guys who are going to be popular today. It's a 10-game slate. And you might say like, oh, I can't play Isaiah Pacheco, or I can't play Ken Walker, or I can't play this guy. And that's not necessarily true. And hopefully we can navigate you to some spots that can allow you to play some of the best plays. I want to add in one more FanDuel. I'm just going to get this out of the way now, so we don't have to talk about it too much. I don't like it that much on FanDuel. I want to state that first. But I'm back in on my cheap quarterbacks, but we're not going back to the Desmond Ridder well. Okay. They say don't walk away from a heater. I'm cashing out the old chips on the Desmond Ridder, Kyle Pitts. After the last 2 weeks, it went about as well as it could. And now it was still gross to watch, but it went about as well as it could. We're cashing out the chips on the Falcons. We're moving it over to the Commanders and the Steelers today. I like both of those as kind of a cheaper stacks. So Howell, Pickett with Deontay and Terry McLaurin. I don't think it's great. I'll call Jahan Dotson as the Odell of that stack, where you got to plug your nose and don't look at any stats or data about Jahan Dotson. You just got to pray to God that they remember that he's really good at football. So he would be the little cheaper Millie Maker type option in those stacks. Let's see. We kind of talked about some of this here, Bryant, there with a little bit more FanDuel, but I mentioned a couple other stacks there for you. Shout out, Doug. I'm hoping we're hoping to go back to the cheap quarterback. Well, Steve asked about Saquon Barkley. Interesting. This will lead us into some of the running back talk. He's not particularly on my radar. A little bit of a tough matchup with Washington, but he is one of the running backs that is going to be low owned. And we know that the workload is massive. We know that there's no Daniel Jones. And so they certainly need something from somebody on offense. And Saquon got loaded up with a bunch of touches last week. Are you playing any Saquon against Washington today?
I am actually. I think I've got him tagged in lineup HQ.
Nice.
So that's the wind game, like probably the game with the highest amount of wind.
Yeah.
So that's actually like, so it's got a low total because we probably see some less passing game work than we normally would, especially like with two pass defenses that you don't necessarily want to shy away from. But yeah, Saquon then probably gets the ball, and like maybe high winds mean shorter passes, and then maybe Tyrod Taylor means shorter passes. And so there actually is a lot that kind of starts to stack up in favor of Saquon Barkley. So he's obviously like more expensive than I would like, but like how many running backs are we looking at this year, and even over the past like couple of years, and saying like, well, this guy's definitely the centerpiece of this team's offense. And Saquon is one of those guys. And so he came back last week. He actually got a pretty healthy amount of touches. I think it was like 27, 29 touches or something like that. I think like 23 rushes. Yeah, 24 rushes and like 4 catches, something like that. Like that workload is there, and it would maybe look a little bit stronger against, the Washington defense, and maybe a little bit stronger 1 week removed from coming back from injury. So yeah, Saquon's a guy that I like a lot, and he's just expensive. And you're kind of like that's taking a bunch of your salary, so it is taking away maybe your ability to play Kelsey, depending on what site you're on. Maybe you're having to dip down to a cheaper quarterback. But I think he's a guy that's not going to be as highly owned as he should be.
I like it. So there's an option. You want to play your Lamar Zay or Lamar Andrews or whatever. You can play Saquon Barkley. Let's talk a little bit about some of the running backs, because obviously Saquon is a running back, and there, like I mentioned, that there's not a ton of amazing options. Let me zoom out just a smidge so it loads a little more there. There we go. I have sorted by projected ownership here on FanDuel in particular, but you will see the ownership really overlaps. A lot of the times it can be a little unique site per site, because pricing can actually be very different. And obviously the scoring is different on the two sites. But this week it's pretty darn similar in terms of the highest owned running backs. You have Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously David Montgomery is out. Craig Reynolds is going to play. I believe we are about 10 minutes away from official actives and inactives. And so we will go over those as they roll in. If you want to post anything in the chat, please feel free. Not a ton in the early games in terms of actives that we're waiting for. One in particular, big one in the afternoon that we will certainly get to. But at running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, Isaiah Pacheco, Ken Walker, Saquon up there. I'd be kind of so shocked if Saquon got to that level of ownership. And then Jerome Ford, I'm going to group those guys because I do think Donta Foreman maybe is a little bit lower down the list in terms of ownership. And if we do get, I guess I should say, Kareem Hunt is questionable. And the reports were weird. Like, he's a game time decision. He's going to test it out in pregame, but the team doesn't feel good about him or whatever. I'm like, then just don't what is the actual point of doing that? But anyway, those guys I think are in a group. If we get Hunt out from Ford up through Gibbs, do you have a favorite amongst kind of the chalky group? And then like maybe a least favorite? Like, how are you attacking these guys? Because they do all look pretty good to me and they all project really well.
Yeah, I think Jerome Ford might be my favorite. I think he's on the cheaper side. It's a tough call between him and Jahmyr Gibbs, and that might just be a result of whether or not Kareem Hunt plays. I like, Jacobs, Pacheco. I mean, there's a reason these guys are all on the highest on the list. Yeah. I guess like FanDuel in particular, probably even Gibbs a little bit over Ford. I think Kenneth Walker is maybe my least favorite, and I think he's going to be extreme chalk on DraftKings. I called him like the Blake Snell of NFL on my NFL show.
That's a great comp. Show. That is a great comp.
Yeah, I don't want to be over the field when he's chalky because he generally doesn't catch passes. He can break off some long runs. He had JM to win, has him as like a certain guy he just doesn't like. And I kind of agree with him that he's had like 3 huge games in his NFL career. Like, this is not a judgment on him in terms of being an NFL running back. Like, he's a great NFL running back, can break long runs. But he's just like he can miss big, and so like if he's going to be seeing like super high ownership, then like if he just doesn't catch a bunch of passes, like he could have an excellent 85-yard no touchdown game, like an excellent NFL game, and just not put up anywhere near what you need him to for his ownership and price. So the issues like Zach Camembert is out. But like, we don't know. DJ Dallas could be stepping into the passing game role. That doesn't mean Kenneth Walker is going to see a ton more work.
I totally agree. And Eric asked that question, QQ, will DJ Dallas cut into Walker? So here's how I'll break down that situation. Zach Charbonnet is out, as John mentioned, their rookie second round pick, I believe, out of UCLA. And by the way, he would be a fantasy monster if he did not get to these. Seattle is so tilting. Can we stop drafting all these high running backs and having them on the same team together? We just want to have one so that we can play them in fantasy and not have to deal with that. But he is out. He has been, mixing in a little bit with Ken Walker. It's still been Ken Walker's backfield, but I'll call it like 70-30, 75-25, something like that in Ken Walker's favor. DJ Dallas has played a little so far, mostly like in super long down and distance passing stuff. And that's what will happen today. To your point on the not catching passes, Charbonnet being out is definitely good for Ken Walker's expectation. He's going to get more work and project to get more work, and more, in particular, more like he already had the goal line stuff. But if he was ever going to lose a goal line carry, it's not to DJ Dallas, it's to Zach Charbonnet, because Charbonnet is like a 240-pound freaking tank. But DJ Dallas is going to take passing down snaps from Ken. Like Ken Walker's not going to play on third downs. So if they fall behind or something, like you said, I would also, Blake Snell's such a good comp. Andrew Haney, as we just saw the other day, right? Sometimes he strikes out 12 guys and sometimes he doesn't make it out of the first inning, and he's a good, it's good. It's just understanding how players score, their range of outcomes, like Jaren Jackson Jr., right? Like when Jaren Jackson Jr. is chalky, it's like, yeah, I mean, he could score 55 here. He also could get 4 fouls in the first quarter, right? And play like 14 minutes. And that's Ken Walker. He could break off 2 70-yard touchdown runs. That's what he does. He's a home run hitter. It's a great matchup. No one is disputing that. I haven't decided yet what I'm doing with all these running backs. That's why I wanted to talk to you. But I agree on Ken Walker. Like he could score 45 points today, or he could score 9. And the 9, like you said, won't even be like a bad game. He could average like 4.8 yards per carry and catch 2 balls, but like he just doesn't get in the end zone. Maybe it's Geno and Metcalf and all that. And so it is tougher to play Ken Walker as chalk. So I would just be smart about how I play Ken Walker teams. One thing I will say that I like, I'm going to click over. We're jumping ahead to the defense here, but there is a defense, the Seattle Seahawks down here with him, that I like playing with Ken Walker. They are projecting for 2% ownership on FanDuel here. You see, I think very low on DraftKings, because they're priced basically the same as the Browns, and they're not super duper cheap. But they're playing Arizona, and I know Arizona has been kind of a revelation and better on offense than we thought, but Seattle's defense is getting healthier. We saw like a ton of sacks last week. I can't remember exactly how many sacks it was, but an absolute ton of sacks. I think they're getting healthier. I think that their defense is actually not bad when at full strength. And so I think if they shut down, right, what you need is the right game script. You need it to be, a run heavy second half for Ken Walker and all that kind of stuff. And so I like the defense to bring along with Ken Walker to really like kind of create a unique high leverage way to play a super chalk running back that's tough. Like you said, he needs something. He needs to break off a long run, and he needs the right game script. And so how do I get it? Well, the Seattle defense is one way that I like doing it with him.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I think there's some running backs you want to pair with your quarterback and somebody from the other team. And I think there's some running backs that like makes way more sense to pair them with the defense.
Yep.
And I think Kenneth Walker is a guy that makes way more sense to pair them with the defense. I could see, if the Seattle defense like shuts down the Cardinals offense, then that's going to lead to like a big Kenneth Walker game. I think short fields, or Josh Dobbs is turning the ball over, sack fumble at the 10-yard line. Like that's perfect for Kenneth Walker. Some game script where Seattle's down is not necessarily a great Kenneth Walker game script.
No.
Because then you're probably going to see some more DJ Dallas. I think that's a great call. I think you should be correlating like Kenneth Walker and the Seahawks defense.
Yep. To your point about like it used to be, right? There used to be the rules of DFS. Oh, there's a great correlation. You pair your running back with your defense, right? Or there's a great correlation with this or that. As you said, that can be true in the total macro level, but not true in the micro level. And so I would compare Jahmyr Gibbs and Ken Walker in that exact scenario. Jahmyr Gibbs' best talent is in the passing game. I know the last time David Montgomery was out and he played, he caught like 1 pass, which was very, very strange. But in terms of Jahmyr Gibbs' pure ceiling, you want a bunch of scoring. You want Goff checking it down to him. You want him breaking off runs in the passing game. You want shootout. Right. So playing him with the Lions defense and just saying, yep, they're going to run the ball. it's going to be a 14-3 game. Like, you don't want that for Jahmyr Gibbs. You want that, right? Like Eckler. It's like he's like Eckler. Kenneth Walker is the opposite. Kenneth Walker is the old school running back that you need the right game script. You don't necessarily want the total shootout. It's not that he can't get there in a shootout. It's just there are certain kinds of games that are better. Are much better for him. What about Josh Jacobs? Let's talk about Jacobs really quickly and the Raiders overall, because Jimmy G is out and Brian Hoyer is starting. I'm not sure we've seen 3 quarterbacks for a team through what week is this? 7? Very, very bizarre things going on out there in Vegas. They're not trading Davante Adams, even though he wants to be traded. They're starting 3 different quarterbacks in the first 7 weeks. And Josh Jacobs is going to be very popular because he's facing the Bears, and they are terrible on defense, and they do not have Justin Fields. What are you doing? Underweight, overweight Josh Jacobs. How do you feel about him and the Raiders? And like, that game overall is very weird and bizarre, right? Because the Bears are missing some running backs. The Bears don't have Fields. How do you think about that game? Because it's both interesting and disgusting.
I think it's an interesting game, yeah, because it has like one of the widest range of outcomes that you can see. It's like, I think 25% Josh Jacobs seems about right, and I think because you just don't know how the game's going to go. This game could end 6-3. Would not be shocking. It's right. What Brian Hoyer and Tyson Badgett. That not the matchup I saw in week 1. And so that could mean that it ends up like 9-3. Would not shock me. It's outdoors in Chicago. It could end up going way over, because what if there's a bunch of turnovers? And that those lead to the short fields, like that sets up perfectly for Josh Jacobs. Jacobs is one of the few like workhorse running backs we see left, and he's been bad enough that like his price hasn't risen, despite all of the opportunity that he gets. But like, we know just from years past, he's going to keep getting these opportunities. He probably is a little bit better, a little bit more efficient. Like, has that capability to be more efficient than we've seen, and especially if like Tyson Badgett is turning the ball over and giving the Raiders those short fields. But I like Josh Jacobs. I maybe like Davante Adams a little bit more, just because there is some squeaky wheel narrative there as well. Brian Hoyer, like, presumably better than the Bears' backup Division II quarterback. But we don't get it. We don't know. Super high range of outcomes in this game. I think, it's going to obviously some ownership, especially on the Raiders side. But 25% seems about right for Josh Jacobs. I'd maybe aim to be over the field on Davante Adams.
I like that. I like, it's just so gross, but I do like all of these receivers in this game. Davante Adams, the price on Jacoby Myers is not amazing. I forget what he is on DraftKings, so I'll try to pull it up really quickly. 6.2K is okay for Jacoby Myers. 7.4K is a little steep on FanDuel, but like, we'll get to the tight end, who is my favorite play in this game. But like, in terms of like the passing game and who the ball goes to, this is one of those, like, I don't want to say gold mine, because like you said, it's Brian Hoyer against Tyson Badgett. I don't think that that's a gold mine, except maybe for the defenses. But they are only going to throw the ball to Davante Adams, Jacoby Myers, Josh Jacobs on checkdowns, and Michael Mayer now at tight end for the Raiders, as he took over the full-time role. He got over 80% of the snap. It was just like it's crazy how the rookies, like, sometimes they just decide, okay, I've seen enough. Now he's the starter, right? And it just flips. He went from playing like 25 snaps a week to all of a sudden he played every single snap last week with Michael Mayer. And he is actually my favorite Raider, I think, on the entire slate. But they don't throw it to anybody else. Adams, Jacoby Myers, Mayer, Jacobs. Like, if you play any of them, you're going to get opportunity. Will it come through? I don't know. It's Brian Hoyer. Like you said, it's a gross game. On the other side, you have Travis Homer is back at running back, but Roshan Johnson is not back, and Khalil Herbert is on IR. Again, bad offense, but sometimes the bad offense is going to lean on the running game. Travis Homer is not the guy they're going to lean on. It's probably Donta Foreman. Now, he didn't get as much work last week as I had really hoped he would. He also got screwed at the goal line, if you will. Wally pipped at the goal line and didn't get the short rushing touchdown, which was surprising to me. But like if I think about the rookie, like you said, rookie D2 quarterback back there, what am I going to do? Air it out with him? I don't know. Maybe they're forced into it, right? Maybe they fall behind a bunch, in which case they're only going to throw it to DJ Moore probably. So that's interesting. But I think Donta Foreman, like a little flop lag, Donta Foreman is at least interesting here in this spot and in my tournament pool, if you will, because I can see we like Josh Jacobs on the other side because it's a good matchup and he's going to get fed. What if they just feed Foreman? Because we're like, we got to hide this quarterback, man. Like we got to hide this kid. He's not good enough to win.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're just getting word. I think Kareem Hunt is active. So that maybe like knocks Jerome Ford down a little bit, although I still do kind of like him as a, I don't know. I don't like him. He's definitely still in play. I don't like him that much less than I did before. It's still a really good game environment. It's indoors. Deshaun Watson playing probably helps him. And like Jerome Ford, it's not like Jerome Ford has been like taking a huge backseat to Kareem Hunt. If Kareem Hunt is a little bit dinged up, maybe that's like maybe this might not be as big of news as we think if Kareem Hunt is kind of hobbled but is active.
I will go so far as to say this is better for us. In terms of the tournaments. I know that's easy to say. You would almost always, kind of like last week, you would almost always rather have like just let the DFS gods hand you Chuba Hubbard right on a silver platter. You would rather have that like with Ford, but like Pierre Strong was going to mix in, maybe not to the level that Hunt would, but Pierre Strong was going to get, like, Ford wasn't going to play every snap, right? He wasn't going to become Christian McCaffrey. He was going to cede some form of work. Like you said, I think if Hunt is not healthy, like this, like if they should dominate this game. Like they have the best defense in the NFL. Let's get that out of the way. They have the best defense in the NFL against Gardner Minshew and a really lackluster offense. Okay. The Browns have shut down almost everyone that they played on offense, far better teams than the Colts. It's going to be a struggle for the Colts offense. Deshaun Watson is back to hopefully make the offense better. And I don't see why they wouldn't lean on Jerome Ford. As you mentioned, he was already the lead back. It was more like 60-40, 65-35 or something like that with him and Hunt. I don't see why it couldn't be 75 today with Hunt, not 100%, right? So, but his ownership, the whole point was his ownership is not going to rise. Like it would have skyrocketed, right? If Kareem Hunt was out, projections would update. Everybody would be like, oh my God, we have to play Jerome Ford. Now I think it keeps him in check a little bit, but I don't think it changes too much.
Yeah, exactly. It just probably means we don't see Deion Jackson for my the practice squad call up for my best ball team because I loved him as he's the week one starter for the Colts. But yeah, I agree actually. And just looking at Ford, like a lot of this is based on like I think he's one of the guys, the three running backs have got tagged, and a lot of the thought process was really more game environment and price. Like who else do you like there at 5,100 on DraftKings? Like Rachaad White. I'll be playing some Rachaad White. But I think Jerome Ford is the best running back at 5,100 and below. Like Donta Foreman is there. I still probably prefer Jerome Ford just because of game environment. And I think Deshaun Watson playing does help him, especially if it's like a Deshaun Watson, like a shoulder injury kind of thing, or maybe that hurts like Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore a little bit. Like, so maybe some of those shorter passes help.
Yep. I totally agree. And Ford is playing lots on passing downs. He's pretty game script proof, even with Hunt out there, not to the level of Jacobs or something, but in terms of the cheaper running backs. Whereas the aforementioned like Donta Foreman, he is very much so needing a specific you cannot have the Bears falling behind by 28 or something with Donta Foreman because it's going to be Travis Homer and Darrington Evans out there. I have no idea who they're going to play between those two guys, but I don't think that's a very important part of this slate. Any other just tournament running backs? And then we're getting some good questions about the Rams backfield that I do want to hit on and I want to talk about. But Eckler, Bijan, it sounds like Aaron Jones is going to play, so we're not going to get a cheaper AJ Dillon, so we can watch him run into the back of his offensive lineman 20 times. Thank God I did not want to have to do that, the AJ Dillon thing. But Aaron Jones, Najee, JT, any of these other guys of interest to you for tournaments?
I think Bijan a little bit. Like Austin Eckler is an interesting call. I want to like him. Whenever you've got a highly projected running back, that like nobody's going to play. It's appealing, and there's a thought, I can play like Austin Eckler. My concern with Eckler is that it's going to miss more often than he's played. Like, yeah, if he does see like 8 to 10% ownership, he's the most expensive running back on the slate, at least on DraftKings. And I think like
by a lot by a lot too.
Yeah, by a lot. I think he's 500 more than Saquon Barkley, who's the second most expensive running back. Who, like, my hesitation there is also the price. And with Eckler, I think Keenan Allen being there takes so much air out of the Austin Eckler play. Like these big Austin Eckler games we think of from last season, they came when Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were out, and Mike Williams is out. But it's just like, I don't think we're going to see those like 12 Austin Eckler receptions that you really want on DraftKings for him, like justify him being the most expensive running back on the slate. Like keep in mind, like he has to be the highest scoring running back as if he's the most expensive, or there's somebody else you could pivot to and get savings. So it's just ending up under the field on Austin Eckler. I agree. He can blow up, and it's the highest point total game of the week. It's just tough to get there if he's not going to see as much receiving work.
I totally agree. He kind of needs to gap the field, and he's not Christian McCaffrey. Look. No one's saying anything negative about Austin Eckler. If you make a team that you love, in particular, maybe it's a Chiefs stack, you can somehow fit him at running back or whatever. It's totally fine. He is the opposite of Ken Walker, like we were talking about. If the Chiefs are going to blow up, the path to that 12 catch game or whatever that is really tough for him now is a monster Chiefs game. So I think he can make sense in some lineups. But as you mentioned, it's just tough, man. Even with a somewhat limited running back pool this week, there's still a good amount of strong plays from, the Jerome Fords up to the Josh Jacobs in that tier. And they're all much cheaper than Austin Eckler across both sites. I have FanDuel up here. And he is, for example, Josh Jacobs is 8K and Ken Walker's 88, right? But Saquon's 83. And then Eckler is 94? Yeah, 9,400. So, I mean, like Jerome Ford is 6,600, right? Jahmyr Gibbs is 6,200. That is a massive price difference. So he not only needs to be the highest scorer, he needs to gap those guys a little bit because you're sacrificing Kupp, Devontae, Kelsey, Lamar, Andrews, etc. to get Eckler.
Yeah, and that's a tough ask, particularly at half point per reception. And the other thing with Eckler is like his ideal game stack is a Chiefs scoring a lot of points game script, right? Chiefs scoring a lot of points game script is probably like Mahomes and Kelsey, and like a Mahomes, Kelsey, Eckler lineup is I don't even know if it's possible. Like it's like you are really scraping for value after that, and that value like is going to have a long shot to hit. So yeah, a little bit down on Eckler, but yeah, we can talk about the Rams running backs as well.
And maybe this is the value. This is how you get your Austin Eckler, Mahomes, Travis Kelce. Thoughts on the Rams backfield? And Erik specifically mentions Royce Freeman. I'll give my take, and I'll see kind of what you think, because I have been rather passionate about this particular take. You know me in the best ball streets, and I had tons of Kyren. RIP, heal up, King Kyren, please get healthy quickly. But this week in the season-long space, people are trying to figure out waiver wire, right? With the Rams, maybe you had Kyren, or you need a running back, or you're just adding somebody. And you saw lots of Zach Evans hype because he's the rookie 6th or 7th round pick out of Ole Miss by way of TCU. And he is a talented player. He was the number 1 running back recruit in his class out of high school, went to TCU. It was very, very bizarre. Played well, was very efficient, but never really got like a ton of work. He was always splitting work with other guys, transfers to Ole Miss and loses that job to another guy, and then goes late in the draft despite seemingly being talented. Goes to the Rams, is inactive to start the year, and he was finally active last week and then gets in the game at the end because both of the other running backs, both Kyren and Ronnie Rivers, got hurt. So the Rams call up Royce Freeman from the practice squad, who was the guy who was active at the beginning. Oh, yes, that Royce Freeman. He's still kicking around in the NFL. And then they signed Darrell Henderson, who they called up to the team, and they signed Myles Gaskin away from the Minnesota Vikings. What the report was last night was that they're going to lean on Royce Freeman and Darrell Henderson. And there was a McVay quote earlier this week that was something about like, yeah, you saw Zach get in there at the end of last week, but like, yeah, like that's probably not how it's going to, he didn't actually say that, but he basically said that was just a matter of circumstance. And if we learned anything about Sean McVay with running backs, it is trust is the number one most important thing. Like, it doesn't really matter how talented you are. He basically kicked Cam Akers off the team. He just brought Darrell Henderson back, and he basically kicked him off the team recently. And Zach Evans, he doesn't trust him. He's a rookie. You have to be able to pass protect. You have to be able to understand, coverages and be on the same page with Matthew Stafford. And we can say whatever the hell we want about Royce Freeman. He stinks, dude. He's not a good NFL running back. But guess what? He knows how to pass protect, right? He's a veteran, right? Why is Latavius Murray playing for the Bills? Because the team trusts him, not because he's good, but the team trusts him. And I believe that Royce Freeman is going to get the overwhelming majority of the work today. And Darrell Henderson probably mixes in because he knows he'll be that backup, right? Just like Ronnie Rivers mixed in with Kyron Williams. I believe Royce Freeman is the guy. That doesn't mean I want to play him for DFS because I'm not saying he's going to be some smash. But I think if you're going to dig really deep down at running back, the Rams are where I want to do it. And I believe that it's Royce Freeman.
Yeah, I think like the way that NFL contracts are these days, the most important thing that a running back does in the team's eyes is often don't get the quarterback killed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know that Zach Evans was playing unless you saw two running back injuries last week. It's mostly a situation I'm going to try to be under the field on this week, I think. And I think Darrell Henderson is in the field on FanDuel, not on DraftKings.
Right.
It's like on DraftKings, you have a situation where like maybe the guy that is getting a lot of the work is not even an option on the slate. I'm going to limit my Royce Freeman exposure a little bit because I think it's probably Royce Freeman in the early downs. And then I think it could be like Darrell Henderson in passing downs. So like maybe Royce Freeman has one of those games where it's like, oh, he gets 65 yards, no catches. But I'd rather have that at 4,100 than at Kenneth Walker's price. So I think if Royce Freeman is the pin that gets you all of your high priced players, I think that's fine. Because we do have some indications he's going to be getting some work. And there is an argument the Rams tend to rely on one running back. We've seen that with Kyron Williams. We've seen that in the past. So if Royce Freeman really is like 3% owned, then I think that's a place you can go. I just don't know. Like he could miss too. So if he's seeing higher ownership, not necessarily somewhere I want to go.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is there are a bunch of those other strong running backs kind of in that mid tier that are, of course, on FanDuel, like you said, 4,100 is pretty nice. On DraftKings, 4K up to like the 6K guys, it gets me stuff, but like it's just not quite the same. I'm not feeling a super strong like pinch salary cap wise on DraftKings. Maybe that is just me. Maybe I am a sicko, more comfortable with some of these cheaper guys. I also think that there's some really good mid-tier wide receivers, which we haven't got to, and we will here in just a second. And so I just don't feel like I have to go there. Whereas like week one, like I played, I'm not trying to say Royce Freeman is Puka because I promise you he is not. But like I was playing Puka and Tutu and those kind of guys and in week one, and I wanted Jefferson and Tyreek and right. I wanted all those high upside guys. We don't have that many of them on this slate. We do have his teammate Cooper Kupp, and I want to talk about him and these kind of superstar expensive wide receivers. Kupp is my favorite. You obviously see he's a lot of people's favorite, tagged by most of us in lineup HQ, but you have Cooper Kupp as the most expensive wide receiver, Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs, Amon-Ra, Devontae Adams at a really nice price, particularly on FanDuel at just 8K. How are you attacking the top end of a wide receiver here amongst these stars?
Yeah, I think it's like Cooper Kupp is going to be up there. Actually, I kind of like being over the field on Stephon Diggs. Not a lot of people are talking about the Bills, and there's some reasons I think like the Patriots aren't necessarily, kind of a team where you're going to see like outlier scores. But if anybody can do it, it's probably Stephon Diggs. like I said, I like Devontae Adams. I'm probably going to end up under the field on Cooper Kupp just because you have to take the ownership from somewhere. I think we're seeing 15% there on FanDuel, and I think it'll probably be higher on DraftKings.
Yep.
So yeah, and then if you are playing a Chiefs stack, I think you could try to get Keenan Allen in there, but I think that's so tough. Again, it is a little bit like the same thing as Austin Eckler, where Eckler and Allen are maybe going to eat into each other a little bit, and the ideal game script there is Chiefs scoring a lot of points. But like if you're doing a Mahomes, Keenan Allen, Kelsey stack, like that's really difficult. So yeah, I mean, I think I like all of the expensive wide receivers. It's difficult, and I guess that's part of the reason why I'm maybe leaning a little bit more towards the value running backs like the Jerome Fords, even if Kareem Hunt is playing, because there's a lot of these guys that I think could post an outlier game that you end up needing to have. Like I definitely want to be over the field on like a 10-12% owned Devontae Adams.
100%. I totally agree with all that. I think that these wide receivers are a big part of like the slate is always nuanced, and it's like the Austin Eckler take that we're giving isn't because we don't think Austin Eckler is going to score plenty of fantasy points today, right? It's like things work together. There are running backs in this mid tier, even all the way down to Royce Freeman at 4,100 on FanDuel. Like if you really want to go crazy and play that, like I would rather do that than play Eckler and go down to the bottom of the barrel wide receivers. Like these things work together, in concert. And I just want Kupp and I want Diggs and Amon-Ra. And you mentioned Devontae Adams is just at 8K and only 12% ownership on FanDuel seems bad to me. Like I understand Brian Hoyer. I understand all of that, but give me Devontae Adams against this defense at a cheap price on FanDuel. That's a good price for him. At that ownership all day, every day. It's a little bit more difficult on DraftKings. You probably have to forego a Kupp or whatever other spend up, possibly depending on what you're doing at running back. But you could do the Royce Freeman thing, and you can get your Fade Jacobs and play Devontae Adams, right? And then you can still get Kupp, or you can still get Kelsey or Lamar Andrews or whatever it is that you want to do. But I really like these wide receivers. There was a couple of questions and such that I think I missed a little bit earlier. Our guy Big Hurt Flowers asked about FanDuel with a little bit of a shorter slate. Do you have any just like advice on what to do with the flex position? Are you more typically, obviously half point PPR better for the running backs, but this week are you more running back in the flex or wide receiver in the flex?
I think I'm a little bit heavier on running back in the flex than I am most weeks, just because we are seeing some discount running backs or some running backs that I like for their price. I'd much rather do that on FanDuel than on DraftKings. Like DraftKings, it's tough with the full point per reception that maybe leans a little bit more towards the wide receivers in the flex. But FanDuel playing a little bit more running back in the flex than I think I normally do.
I like it. Eric asked about Gus Edwards. There's two running backs. Eric mentioned Brian Robinson and Gus Edwards. I will say I do really like Brian Robinson. Actually, we didn't mention him. I should have mentioned him. He's very much in the player pool for me. You discussed that it's a little windy there. Maybe we get a little more running or a little more short passing. Brian Robinson, it may not be a superstar. He reminds me of a little bit of a Najee Harris as a runner, kind of a big plotter that can break some tackles and stuff, but he scores. He scores touchdowns. He has a valuable role in that offense. He does catch passes, even though Antonio Gibson is there. He looks pretty good to me today against the Giants, where I really like the Commanders to kind of control that game a little bit with no Daniel Jones. And on the flip side, Gus Edwards is like a similar type of a player to Brian Robinson. B-Rob will catch a few more passes than Gus, but he's kind of the early down grinder and goal line guy. But it's not a very good matchup. He really doesn't catch passes. Yeah. I'm not interested in Gus today, but I do like Brian Robinson just to kind of compare those two. What do you think about them?
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I think Brian Robinson is an interesting play. If the Commanders are leading that game, from start to finish, like it could be a big Brian Robinson day. Giants defense is not something we've been trying to shy away from. If we're seeing that offensive line fall apart and that's leads to a Tyrod Taylor sack fumble, then short field again, very good for Brian Robinson. Gus Edwards like kind of fits into the same category that the Chicago running backs fit for me when Justin Fields is playing, that I'd much rather play the running quarterback than the running back from the team with the running quarterback. Yep. I have basically faded running backs that are playing with Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields going back years now, and I can't think of the time that I'm sorry for it. Like it never played Gus Edwards. I don't want to say I've never played him, but like I consistently under the field on like Gus Edwards, and I'm trying to think of when I regretted it. So, so yeah, it maybe seems like it's like a pivot off of Lamar Jackson. I'd just rather play Lamar Jackson. Like it,
leverage needs, right? You would say, oh, well, it's a leverage play, right? Like I can leverage up, but like leverage needs some juice to it, right? So like fading Jacobs to play Devontae Adams is like dream leverage. Like the guy can totally break the slate, right? Devontae Adams could gap the field at wide receiver and score 45, 50 fantasy points. Gus Edwards is not going to gap the field. Sure, could he get 2 touchdowns? Anything can happen, right? And that can happen at any time. But like even if he scores 2 touchdowns, it's possible he's not like that valuable, right? Because it's just one of those things. I think everybody gets it. Jeffrey likes McKinnon. There was also just a question about that game. I know we talked about it kind of at the top, but are you playing any McKinnon, Rashee Rice, MVS, that kind of stuff alongside your, bringing those guys along for the ride? Because we haven't really discussed Pacheco. We did discuss Mahomes, Kelsey in that game, but are you playing a decent amount of Pacheco? Because he's going to be pretty owned, and we didn't talk about him too much. And then if not, right, is it anything else for the Chiefs, or are we just sticking to Mahomes, Kelsey?
Actually, I think McKinnon's an interesting sneaky play because he is a guy that sees a lot of red zone work, and he just hasn't been as involved this season. But I think that might be more like happenstance than anything else. And so, like, if the Chiefs are expected to be the highest scoring team on the slate, or like before we actually start the games, projected Chiefs are the highest scoring team on the slate. Like, yeah, this could be a Jarek McKinnon week, and you're not necessarily sacrificing a ton at like 4,700. Like, and we know he's going to be in there. He's going to be, he's going to get some targets. And so I do like McKinnon. I've got a pretty healthy amount of Rashee Rice. Not going overboard, but like if I am going to a Chiefs wide receiver, I think it's probably Rashee Rice. I think you can go to some Kadarius Toney. I think Justin Watson being out maybe helps that a little bit, like helps Toney a little bit. So I generally want to be over the field on Chiefs, and I think McKinnon, Rashee Rice, and Kadarius Toney can be part of that. So yeah, I think all of those are good, interesting plays. Like play guys in a game environment and a team that we know is going to score some points. And then if you want to get super sneaky, I think Mecole Hardman, is a play. Probably more of a Millie Maker play, 1 in 150. But they signed him for a reason, so he could be getting in there as well, and he'll be obviously at like 1% ownership. So if you want to Millie Maker play.
There we go. I love it. I want to talk about Seattle. We talked about a lot about Ken Walker, but as you see here, DK Metcalf is questionable, game time decision. I don't know what the hell is going on with DK Metcalf, to be totally honest with you. He's like never practicing all year. It's a rib thing, and he continues to say it's fine. I'm fine. They're just managing the pain, I guess, and there's no real reason to have him out there at practice. But then he picked up a hip injury, I believe, to add to his rib ailment, and hasn't been practicing. And he's truly, again, they said this is different. This isn't like last week he was questionable and like or not practicing, but it was never really actually in doubt. Supposedly this week it is in doubt for DK Metcalf. And so we've been waiting. I certainly, and maybe some of my best ball brethren, season-long brethren, have been waiting for the Jackson Smith and Jigba emergence. I'm not sure that DK Metcalf potentially being out is just naturally means JSN is really going to pop. But if Metcalf does miss, it certainly makes the Seattle guys much more appealing. They're already appealing, I think, particularly at these prices. I mean, 6,800 for Tyler Lockett against the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals defense stinks. It definitely stinks. They've been carved up by everybody except the Cowboys. That's pretty interesting. The Cowboys are the only team to not really score on them. But Ken Walker is going to be very popular, right? If DK Metcalf misses, what are you thinking about with Seattle? Does it impact Geno at all for you? Are you willing to stack Geno if DK misses? And then if he plays, what do you think about these guys?
So yeah, I think Geno is definitely in my quarterback pool. I think he's going to be pretty popular on DraftKings in particular. Like he's got a really good price. Might even be like cash game quarterback on DraftKings. I don't play a lot of cash games on DraftKings.
Yep.
But so I want to be over the field. I think on the Seattle passing offense. I think part of that is maybe being a little bit under the field on Kenneth Walker.
Mhm.
Basically, what I do in situations like this, I assume DK Metcalf is going to play. I get a little bit of him in like my 150 pool. I can swap that out if he is out. And then you can even swap to like Tyler Lockett. But I'm basically boosting like Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba, assuming that they're going to play, assuming that Metcalf is going to miss. So like over the field in my lineups on Lockett and JSN, but then have late swaps in mind. Like I think you can go from JSN like to Kadarius Toney if you want, and you don't necessarily need to. Like I love playing rookies as the season goes on because everybody wants to play them week one, which is usually when they're still like learning the playbook and they don't have the trust of the coaches that we talked about earlier. And then by the time that they actually do have the trust of the coaches and they do know the playbook better, people have forgotten about them and they're looking at their historical stats going, well, this guy barely plays. Well, no, this is a guy they drafted highly and for a reason, right? They want to get him more involved as the season goes on. So I like JSN as a play a lot today. I'm going to aim to be over the field. Playing a lot of Tyler Lockett, I think a little bit more on FanDuel. And then maybe I want to late swap some of that out if DK Metcalf is playing, but I don't think you necessarily need to.
Yeah, you definitely don't need to. Like, I think that you can play these guys. I think that they were good plays. The matchup is great. I mean, Tyler Lockett projects for 11 FanDuel points with DK Metcalf in. So like he's gonna pop even more without it, but he's a totally fine. Could Tyler Lockett have 100 yards and a touchdown or 2 touchdowns against the Cardinals? No matter if Metcalf is in there, of course. I think for JSN, ideally you would have Metcalf out because I do just think his overall target earning ability is a little bit capped with Metcalf in there. I don't think Jake Bobo is going to take quite the same level of targets as DK Metcalf. What I will say, total, we're willing to throw some Millie Maker plays out there, right? Like we talked about Odell and McCole Hardman. Mine is going to be Jake Bobo if DK Metcalf is out. He's been playing. Jake Bobo, a 6th round rookie. He's a rookie. I don't even know if he was drafted. I should have looked this up before. Not important. Anyway, Jake Bobo, rookie Duke and UCLA. He is very much like one of these guys that the coaches love, like total try hard, coach's kid, all of that crap. But it's true. Runs good routes. Not a super special athlete, but he's been playing. So here's his snaps. Week 1, 25% of snaps. Week 2, 25%. 41%, 38%, 31% of snaps. He's playing. He's basically like the backup to the outside guys, Metcalf and Lockett, and rotating in a little bit. He's going to become like a full-time player if DK Metcalf misses. He's not earning a ton of targets, right? He has 6 targets on the year, but last week against Cincinnati, he went 2 for 43. So he's not totally crazy. I think like in the afternoon or in the middle, like you said, playing for Metcalf to miss in the Millie Maker, figure out swaps if he does play off of that. But like in the afternoon slate, everybody's going to jam JSN, right? And lock it if Metcalf misses. I think Bobo is a pretty fun tournament play there. So there's your crazy wild wide receiver that we like to find. To add him to your list.
Last time you did this, I ended up playing Iosivas from Cincinnati, and we just missed the touchdown by 1.
I know. He did get a touchdown. Yeah, Iosivas. I mean, these things, I love to do these things though in the large field tournaments. Like this is the reason why I end up playing. Like usually I just play one team and I just play it in kind of all the different tournaments, single entry, some higher stake stuff, whatever. But when I like to sprinkle some Millie Maker stuff, it's actually for spots like this. It was for spots like Puka in week 1. Sometimes you get Puka, sometimes you get Iosivas, sometimes you get somewhere in the middle. And but I think that they're really strong tournament plays for the large field stuff. You don't got to play Jake Bobo to win a 300 person tournament, but for the Millie Maker, I like it. So there's your Seattle Seattle breakdown. Geez, some people are feeling hostile in the chat this morning. I'll bring up the Giants wide receivers. We talked about Saquon. Are you playing any of the Giants wide receivers? And Darren, and what about Darren Waller as well in that game? And we'll transition into the tight ends with that.
Sure. So yeah, I do like Wan'Dale. Like Wan'Dale's in my wide receiver pool at 3,800 on DraftKings. The concern is that like he tends to be a bunch of receptions, but not a touchdown guy. I don't mind Jalen Hyatt. I've been saying it's all hasn't struck yet. I don't mind like Jalen Hyatt as a pivot off of Wan'Dale Robinson. But I think Robinson's in play too. I'm not going to be playing like 40% Wan'Dale Robinson. I think, if he could be the running back the wide receiver that fits for you at 3,800, and I think that's fine. And maybe some wind does, come into play here. So maybe the shorter receptions is the player that you want. I think the matchup's a little bit better for Hyatt, being like the outside receiver. Mm-hmm. But yeah, maybe the wind conditions aren't conducive to that this week. And then also maybe Tyrod Taylor is not like conducive to that as well. But so I think, I don't mind Tyrod Taylor actually in like a 150 setting. Like if you're playing or 20 max, like play a Tyrod Taylor lineup, put in Robinson or Jalen Hyatt or even Saquon Barkley. But so I think Wan'Dale's fine. I don't want to be going berserk with him. And then same thing with Darren Waller. I think he can fit in there in the Giants passing offense. So I think maybe about 5%. I think if you're playing 20 lineups, then play a Tyrod Taylor or Darren Waller. Play a Tyrod Taylor, Wan'Dale Robinson, but like not something I'm going to like aim to be over the field on. The game total is a concern, and the win conditions are a little bit of concern. So yeah, I think it's fine.
I'm trying not to worry too much about the wind. We have it in basically two places there: Commanders, Giants, and Lions, Ravens. It's a little worse in the Washington game than it is in Detroit, but some like 15 to 20 mile an hour winds with some stronger gusts. Sometimes that matters and sometimes it really doesn't. So I'm not taking it too much into account, but I will say it tilts me because Jalen Hyatt would be another one of those. I'm not trying to compare him to Jake Bobo, but in the Jake Bobo category of I would like to play him in some large field stuff. It's a little frustrating because he is very much a home run hitter. Like that's what he does. Like that he is a big play, deep threat speed guy. Can he technically do it, with a screen or something? Sure, but that's really not what he does. Tyrod Taylor, bad offensive line, good pass rush. The matchup is good in terms of the secondary. So I think he's worth a sprinkle as well, Jalen Hyatt. Like you said, and it just happens for rookies, right? Sometimes it just happens. He was not playing to start the year, 36% of snaps in week 1, 21% of snaps in week 2. Last week, he played 73% of the Giants' offensive snaps. He only had 4 targets, but still, like I would rather take that Hyatt shot on like, please God, catch a long one than pray Wan'Dale catches 14 passes to at his ownership. Like Wan'Dale caught 8 balls last week and didn't put up a difference-making score, right? Like that's just, I just can't. It's kind of like he's the dollar store Keenan Allen. Now Keenan has been much better this year and scoring some touchdowns, but it's like that's what we're talking about here. He's just not that appealing for me. I'd rather try some other punts. I do like Darren Waller. I will say, if we're worried about kind of some of the downfield passing and we're worried about Tyrod Taylor, Darren Waller, especially at 6K, I think is a good price on FanDuel for him, and he's low owned. The targets have come back, right? He's like he's fancy Kyle Pitts. He's getting the usage that we want in a crappy offense. And sometimes you just got to bet on that usage. The matchup is good for him. The price is pretty good. The ownership is pretty good. So Darren Waller is up there on my list of tight ends that I do like today. And of course, I'm into the Howell, McLaurin, Howell, Samuel, Howell, Dotson, whatever, Washington stack, and Brian Robinson. And so I think that the Giants do have some appeal, and Waller is a pretty strong tight end play. What do you think about Waller? And then any other tight ends that are popping the most for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can play Waller. The game total is like a little bit of a concern for me, but I think you can go there. And he is a guy that can, like, in terms of what tight ends can pile up receptions, like Darren Waller's not too far down that list. Like even when you start at the top, in terms of like tight ends that are like popping for me, like I hate to say this, but like, Travis Kelce. I mean, that's the guy that I would want to play. Like that's basically the only tight end I would really go out of my way, and maybe sacrifice elsewhere in my roster because I really wanted to get Kelce. And that's basically the tight end play. I know we talk about it being like the catcher of football, but yeah, I mean, play the guy in your stack, or try to get up to Travis Kelce. I think Kelce's actually not like had that like huge breakout game that we've seen before where you like this season where you need to have him, but it's probably coming. So I think he's maxed out at about 24 DraftKings points. This could be the week that he puts up 30 and we're all just sitting here going like, oh wow, like why did we not play more Travis Kelce?
Yep.
As he's projected there for 24% ownership, I don't actually know if he's going to hit that. We'll see. And I'd aim to be over the field on that 24. Just because like he is the tight end that can break the slate. And I think you can play him without Mahomes. Like I'd rather play Kelce without Mahomes, I think, than vice versa. That's the tight end that I'm really aiming to get. I think Mark Andrews is probably next on the list. But I think Zay Flowers maybe takes some of that, takes some of the shine off of Mark Andrews. So yeah, in terms of like what tight end do I really love, it's Travis Kelce.
Yeah, this is where you come, guys, for the really hot takes. Play Travis Kelce and play Mark Andrews. I mean, we've covered the hot takes with Odell and McCole Hardman and Jake Bobo. I think we've covered the hot takes. We don't have to go super crazy at every single position. I, of course, like those guys as well. We talked about Waller. There was a Laporta question. And not so much for me today. It's nothing negative against him. Sam Laporta is great. The price has just gotten up. Gibbs is back and kind of operates a little bit in the same spots of the field that Laporta does. Amon-Ra is healthy. Jameson Williams is back. I think J-Mo's probably a net positive for Laporta to be able to open up the middle of the field, but just the price is up and the projection is down. You know what I mean? For Laporta, the matchup's not that good. So he's the guy I'm throwing out of the kind of super expensive guys. I prefer Kelce, Andrews, and Waller at that end.
Yeah, exactly. Like Sam Laporta falls into that pattern that we don't like to see. Nothing against him as a player, but it's like he's really low salary. Again, another rookie that you'd expect to see come on as the season goes on. But yeah, he was down at like 3,800, 4,000. And then like Jahmyr Gibbs was out. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown was out. So then he has these big games and then they raise the price, but then those guys come back. And then so now you've just got a guy that's like priced too high. And then you say, well, that's going to affect his ownership, but maybe it's not going to affect his ownership as much as it should. So I'm probably going to be under the field on like a 10% Sam Laporta. Although you can play him like in your 150 set, like I'll have some, just aim to be under 10%.
I think you could play him in game stacks for sure. If you're Lamar, Zay with Laporta, Gibbs, whatever, that game has a bunch of appealing plays. So it's kind of similar to some other guys we talked about where like Eckler, he's kind of like an Eckler of tight ends. Like if he fits in a team and you can make it work and the team makes sense, go for it. But in terms of when I'm starting, if I'm hand building my team after this on the couch or whatever, I'm not, it's probably not coming down to Sam Laporta. I'm going to throw out, I mentioned my favorite a tight end of the week, Michael Mayer, rookie tight end from the Raiders. I'm a little bit stunned. I think I wrote this in my blurb when I tagged him. I'm a little bit shocked at the ownership and the projection. I understand. Let me pull up Vegas really quickly. I understand that, Austin Hooper has been playing, and I understand that Brian Hoyer is the quarterback. So I get all of that. But this is like an elite prospect of a receiver. Like we've never, like Kyle Pitts didn't do what Michael Mayer did at Notre Dame. Just absolutely dominated targets, put up monster seasons in a pretty lackluster passing offense, to be totally honest, and then emerged second round pick, right? Then emerged. Some people thought he would be the first tight end picked. It was Kincaid, obviously, and then Laporta went as well. But like we saw that flip, right? Jalen Hyatt, we just talked about, went to 75% snaps last week from 30-something. Michael Mayer, same thing. Like Hooper was gone last week. Like it is his job. Does that maintain? I don't know. but he's 2,700 on DraftKings. He's basically the minimum salary. He's way too talented for that salary. The matchup is perfect. The only concern is Brian Hoyer, right? Like Brian Hoyer in that game getting super gross, which is very possible, but it's tight end. Like you show me other than Kelce and Andrews, right? And maybe and Waller's in a gross game too. Like other than Kelce and Andrews, like who are you clicking in that's like, oh yeah, this is a home run, right? So like, I don't know. I like Michael Mayer. I think he can get you some of these things. Kupp, Devontae, right? Amon-Ra, Eckler, whatever. Get those expensive running backs. You don't got to dip into Royce Freeman, right? We talked about Royce Freeman or Jake Bobo. Like I don't have to do that because I can just play Michael Mayer and get these other guys that I really want in my teams. I want the Chiefs, right? If you are comfortable playing Mahomes without Kelce, you can play Michael Mayer and get your MVS, Tony, whatever stack around Mahomes. I just think he's a kind of a linchpin of the slate for me.
Yeah, I think I can do more with the savings on DraftKings with a 2,700 Michael Mayer than on FanDuel with like a 4,900 Michael Mayer. But I think on DraftKings, like that's the thing with DraftKings, like the pricing goes way farther down than it does on FanDuel, and like that's like Michael Mayer is the kind of player you want to take advantage of with that, because like if Kelce misses and Andrews misses, then you're probably going to want to have spent as least amount at tight end as you could, and Michael Mayer, fits in there at 2,700, just 200 above, like still minimum. So I like that call.
And even if those guys hit, now if Kelce hits for 40 or something, it's different. But even if those guys hit, if Kupp and Devontae and Keenan and whatever, Diggs, if those guys hit, also it's really beneficial to have spent cheaply on the tight end. Hit a couple quick questions and then we'll bring the crunch time folks in and start to hand it off to them. Any Luke Musgrave? We haven't talked about the Packers. We should quickly talk about the Packers before we get out of here. Obviously a great matchup with the Broncos. Aaron Jones is back. Christian Watson is there. What are you doing with the Packers in a pretty good spot at pretty good ownership in tournaments?
Yeah, actually I like this game a lot. It's got one of the higher point totals in the week, and we kind of haven't talked about it maybe as much as we should. I think it's an interesting game to maybe pivot to a couple pieces from this game. Maybe if you're like late swap and trying to get different, like maybe you missed on something that was relatively big in the early slate. But I think you should build in some of this game as well if you're doing like multi-entry. I think Luke Musgrave is in there in the tight end conversation. He'll be one of my higher owned tight ends just because he's really good for the price, like 3,300. I know I've got him like projected a little bit higher than like Michael Mayer. And Trey McBride, who's also right around the Michael Mayer price point, and also right around the same projection. So I like Musgrave. I like Christian Watson. Probably not going to a bunch of pieces on the Packers other than that. Like I'm not playing much like Dobbs or Aaron Jones. I do like Jordan Love for the price. I think he's really cheap, and I think Russell Wilson as well is like too cheap. I think like Russell Wilson's one of the better quarterbacks at his price. I think he's like 5,400. There's not like a ton below 5,400 that I would want to play a lot of it at quarterback. Like his competition, Russell Wilson's is like Tyrod Taylor, Baker Mayfield, Joshua Dobbs. Like I like Russ better than all those guys. Like I think all of those guys are fine if you're like a 150 set million maker type lineups. Like Russell Wilson's the guy that I would want to 5,400 and below. And you compare him with like Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton. And so, I mean, I like this game, and I especially like this game as maybe a pivot to, because this could be the highest scoring game of the
definitely
slate. So like if you miss on something in the early slate, maybe this is a game like you swap to a couple pieces from this game and hope it goes over its total.
I totally agree. I did just want to, you mentioned Trey McBride, but it just hit my thought to polish up our discussion here with the tight end stuff. I think all of these tight ends like make sense, right? Build them into the teams that make the most sense. So we talked about Ken Walker, and you can play McBride with Ken Walker, of course, but where I really like Trey McBride as a play, and as Jeffrey said, similar to Michael Mayer, not quite to the extent of Michael Mayer, where he just like coffined Austin Hooper. McBride took over kind of the lead tight end role, which has not happened obviously yet so far this year. So the expectation is that moving forward, the young, talented second-round pick, who also was a monster in college, will continue to trend up. And it's a really good matchup for him against Seattle. But I like him with like if I'm stacking Geno, or even like I'm playing Lockett or something. I really like McBride on those teams. Like, give me that shootout, because I want him to catch a bunch of passes when they're playing from behind. And then like Michael Mayer, right? Like maybe I'm playing Devontae. You don't have to play Brian Hoyer, but you can say, I'm playing the pass game here, right? I'm playing this pass game. I'm not playing Josh Jacobs, whatever. And then like when I'm stacking the Packers game, right? Like, give me Luke Musgrave, when using those tight ends, like to tell the story with the lineup, as opposed to just like, oh, who's your favorite, right? Like which tight end, who's your favorite? I like to build the team that sets that tight end up for success.
Yeah, that's maybe a better way to put it than it's the catcher position of the NFL.
Well, it is who would Travis Kelce be? Kristi, who would Travis Kelce be if we called tight end the catcher of the NFL? Is it Will Smith? I'm trying to like old school. Remember Gary Sanchez when he was good? I think is it Gary Sanchez when he actually knew how to hit a baseball? Who is Travis Kelce?
Oh,
you're on mute. Still mute?
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking Will Smith. I mean, like he's just, it's hard to beat him. He's just one of the best catchers right now.
Definitely. Andre, how's it going? How are we feeling about this slate? I like that hoodie. Where the hell did you get that hoodie? I need that. Dave or Dan or Riley, somebody's getting a text here as soon as I get off, because I need one of those hoodies.
It definitely was Dave, I think, who sent it over to me. So I appreciate you for doing that, and send more. but this slate is, I actually kind of like it, even though for a weird slate, for what a lot of people call it weird. Not doing my lineups today this week, so that's a good thing. But I think it's really interesting. I got a couple good plays, hopefully in good places, some sneaky takes I think no one really is on yet, but we'll see.
Awesome. Luch, how's it going? There's no, I'd say this every week. There's no Brit today. If I brick my Sam Howell DFS teams, by the way, we did not brick the Falcons. Shout out Desmond Ridder and Kyle Pitts. Everyone who laughed, you can shove it. But Sam Howell is that when Sam Howell bricks today out in the 30-mile-an-hour winds, I need something to make up for my DFS losses. What do you got for me?
Well, you have a hell of a showdown game tonight, Miami and Philadelphia. So
we'll get it back. We'll get it back on Sunday Night Football. Yeah,
get it back. Take an hour off. Collect your bearings, and then it's time to figure out which star receiver will get the volume on Sunday Night Football, or maybe it'll be the DeAndre Swift show. Who knows? But I think we're going to find out a lot about Miami and Philadelphia tonight. And just kind of see who's a little more fraudy, if anybody. I mean, Jalen Hurts taking some heat. Maybe rightfully so lately. I know a couple of those picks, weren't his fault after going back and like watching the full game last week. But still, 7 INTs for Jalen Hurts. He's got one for every week so far. So I'm excited for the showdown slate tonight.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great take. And thank you. I can give a shameless plug. I will be on the air on SiriusXM a little bit later. We have a show from for 3 hours from about the second half of the afternoon games through into the first half of Sunday Night Football, 6 to 9 Eastern. Myself and Chris Prince, Beer Makers fan. So hopefully I'll be celebrating wins, or I'll be building showdown teams to try to get it all back. But you can join me, and Chris and I will talk it through. But that'll do it for GPP Final Takes. Myself and John. Crunch time, folks. Got you handled here. Any questions, drop them in the chat, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a good one, guys.
Awesome job. Thanks, guys, and thanks for sticking with RotoGrinders here throughout the morning marathon. Welcome to Crunch Time, presented by FanDuel. And if you're in a legal sports betting state, check out FanDuel Sportsbook. You get $200 in bonus bets, plus 3 months of NBA League Pass for free. What a deal. The NBA is kicking off next week. Of course, RG and Scores and Odds got you covered. I'm ready for the drama. I'm already, you know what I'm ready for, Andre? I'm ready for Jordan Poole dropping 40 and then going 0 for the next game, which I already saw.
Speaking of that, I got one of my bets. I'm going to put in with Jordan Poole. It'll be up on Scores and Odds tomorrow, definitely for sure, since the NBA season kicks off on Tuesday, and then I will be on the show Tuesday, which I cannot wait. Okay, I'm glad it's back. I love basketball.
Kristi, we got football to talk though, and I know your Vikings aren't. Things are rough, and we're a sad bunch here. Saints,
We are.
All of us are that bunch. I'm a Saints fan. We're not doing well either.
So we're just all sad. But what are your thoughts on the Vikings and the Niners? I saw we had a couple picks on scores and odds with taking the Vikings and 7 points. So what do you think about that game?
Yeah, I think the Niners are going to get it done. It sounds like McCaffrey's going to play now from what I saw this morning. So the Vikings are just, they're just kind of a mess. And without Justin Jefferson, it's just pretty tough to see. They just haven't caught a lot of breaks. They've been in a couple of close games, but I think the Niners are still going to get it done.
Yeah, so that'll be a fun Monday night game. We'll see how that unravels. Drop your questions in the live stream Discord channel and the YouTube chat, and then we will definitely circle back. And if I missed any of them, feel free to drop it in again, and we'll fight through the inevitable bot spam that always comes through. Let's get it started. Dre, I'll throw it over to you first. Talk to me about quarterback on this busy bye week DFS slate we got here.
Yeah, quarterback is that was actually very tricky for me this week, just trying to figure out who do I really want to go with. But I landed on just going with a lot of Deshaun Watson. It's a good play, I think, by a good play, good position. It's been off a month, so he should be almost fully recovered, not fully recovered from that shoulder injury. So I like that a lot. Then obviously Geno Smith. Now that game is a Jekyll and Hyde game in my opinion. Just from looking at the previous games of how they played last year and stats, Geno is either going to do really well or it's going to be just a straight running game all day with Kenneth Walker. But I think Kenneth Walker is an amazing play altogether. But Geno Smith is either going to shine bright or not. So I like getting to him a lot and taking that chance with him with the field. And then I do got another guy in here that I really wasn't expecting to be on a lot of, but I ended up on him, which is Jordan Love, which we've been talking about a lot. He's been getting, I think, more steamed up as the week has been going on and the weekend. But he's in a good position against a defense that is not that great. They traded some of their defensive players to get probably younger, try to get them more experience. So I think while that's happening, Jordan Love could definitely take advantage of them and have a pretty big game here. So I love getting to him a lot and also some of his receiving pieces. And then obviously I'm going to have the regular guys like Patrick Mahomes, Sam Howell, who I like a lot, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. And then I've got I left Matt Stafford for last because I do like him a lot. He's probably, but I'm getting him probably like my fourth highest owned quarterback, just for the simple fact of he's going to be passing the ball a lot. I think that they're going to rely on his arm heavy in this game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I expect him and Kupp to have a big game here today.
Kristi, I saw you tagged West Virginia's finest, Geno Smith, on FanDuel. Talk to me about Geno and the rest of the quarterbacks here.
Yes, I do like Geno today. I mean, if there's ever a great matchup, everything lines up so well. We don't know for sure, DK Metcalf, a little bit of a game time decision, but they've got some great pieces. Lockett, Dre mentioned Kenneth Walker, which I don't even mind in some of those Geno lineups too, just because you can kind of capture a lot of that offense. So I really like that route too. Jackson Smith, I think this is a great value play in there. So I do like Geno Smith. I think, there's some good run backs on the other side with Hollywood Brown, some interesting pieces there. He's at a good price point, really on both sides. So he's probably one of my favorite plays, and I think just a good value play too for the quarterback position.
Yeah, I would say the Cardinals are giving up the second highest target share to receivers lined up out wide so far this year. So definitely some stackable options if Kenneth Walker or running back XYZ doesn't vulture the touchdown equity there.
Exactly. And I do, Lamar Jackson, especially on FanDuel, really checks in as a great play. I think he's your cash game play just because he has that rushing upside, pairs really well with Mark Andrews or with Zay Flowers, who's checking in as a really great option too. So I like that. It'll be interesting to see where Patrick Mahomes' ownership actually comes in. I think a lot of people are saving money this week. I mean, Dre mentioned Deshaun Watson too. Now that we know he's in, he's a good value piece, especially on DraftKings, I think. But I do have some interest in Mahomes if he is going to be a little bit under-owned. I know we have him at 14% ownership, but I think that could even skew down a little bit with all the value available. I also think Josh Allen, just to get him at lower ownership. I mean, I know it's, the Patriots aren't as tough as they have been in the past. And so I just think it's an interesting spot with he and Diggs and some of the other pieces there. So I definitely have interest. Mentioned Justin Herbert as well. I probably like Mahomes better. I just think he has a better setup. And I really like Kelsey a lot at the tight end position. So yeah, I think those are the guys I like. And then you said Stafford too. I think he is too. I think, with Kieran Williams being out, I think they throw it a lot more. They've got Cup back. They've got Puka back. So, I mean, there's just some great options. I think they throw it quite a bit more, and I think he's a good GPP play as well.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. Josh Allen coming in kind of criminally low here. I mean, the Patriots look not great. So I know divisional game, and depending on what angle you want to say, ugly divisional game, throw the records out, or maybe Buffalo just puts up 30. Yeah, I don't know, but pretty low ownership stuff there. I'm gonna play a little Deshaun Watson. The game's inside. The Colts on the outside are really bad. There's some unknown there, a lot of unknown there. I mean, who knows what shape that shoulder's in, but there's a lot of sustained wind on the Roth weather forecast. He does have a little wind in that Patriots game as well. But on the RotoGrinders weather page, he does have that labeled as green. So nothing to really deter you. And I know the weather was cited in that Baltimore-Detroit game, but Lamar Jackson, his upside's on the ground anyway. So if he's going to do serious damage, I don't really care if there's a little bit of wind in that game when it comes to Lamar. So I guess let's move forward here to running back. And, Saquon Barkley got a lot of volume last week. Jahmyr Gibbs been the hot topic of conversation. We got a couple questions in about him already. So running back, what's your thought in this position group, Andre? Where are you going today?
Running back it was actually really simple until about a half hour ago when we found out that Kareem Hunt was in. So it's kind of making me want to get a little bit less Jerome Ford, because I know they're going to split it 50-50 now. Even though Jerome Ford, I think, is still the main primary guy in that backfield. He's going to catch passes out of the backfield too, which I saw a lot more. You just never know with Kareem Hunt and also how healthy he is. So I still will go with a decent amount of Jerome Ford and be maybe a little bit over the field, but nothing too over. I love Kenneth Walker today. I think he's in a smash position today. He just dominated this team last year, and I look forward to him doing it again this year against a team who has just been giving up on the run on the ground all year long. So I definitely love Kenneth Walker here today. Isaiah Pacheco, so excellent play. Jahmyr Gibbs as well. Donato Foreman, who I think is going to probably become in less ownership than what we have him at right now. I think he's a fantastic play. You don't want to forget about Brian Robinson. And a sneaky play that he's getting a little bit of ownership. I don't know how much he's really going to be owned. Is Aaron Jones. I think that he's a fantastic GPP play here with the Packers. First game back, but he said he feels healthy. So I'm going to trust him with that and just roll with him today. So I like him a lot. And I think you got to play some Saquon today in some GPPs as well.
All right, Kristi, running back, talk to me here.
Yeah, I do think Jahmyr Gibbs, makes a ton of sense. No, David Montgomery is just gonna get a ton of touches. Great value piece. So I like that. Josh Jacobs, who you mentioned too. Great matchup against Chicago. Pacheco, he's probably my favorite piece. He's a guy I tagged too, along with Jacobs. I just like him getting a piece of that Kansas City game. I probably like he and Kelsey the most. Kenneth Walker. Probably one of the top plays on the slate. He's more expensive on FanDuel this week. I think on DraftKings, he's a great core play at just $7K. But I do like getting to him at FanDuel as well. And Aaron Jones, you mentioned Aaron Jones. I think he is definitely a guy that's going to get overlooked just because he's had the Q tag all week. Dylan hasn't been great, so I do like that. One of the guys that I like a lot, especially on FanDuel, it's a tough matchup against Cleveland, but I like getting some Jonathan Taylor. This is our chance to get him at low ownership. His price is so cheap, doesn't have to do a lot. I know he's still splitting the backfield with Moss, but I'd rather get him at low ownership now. And so I'm taking some shots on him. Think he's a good play. I think for value, Royce Freeman has popped into that conversation. I think at the start of the week, we thought Evans was going to be the guy. It looks like Royce is going to get the start. So I think, if you're looking to really save and pay up at some of the receiver spots, certainly don't mind that. And then, I think Jerome Ford, maybe not quite as much interest now that we know Kareem Hunt is in there. So, and then I'd also throw Austin Eckler in there. He's expensive, but another good look in that Kansas City game at extremely low ownership.
Yeah, we had a question in the YouTube from Dopey Beaver. Do you think they'll feed Jonathan Taylor the ball? So where do you gauge his opportunities at here? Like, are you just kind of, he's gotten gradually more work in every game so far. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, it is. And, they paid him, he's their guy. He's their future. I think they've gradually worked him back. And if he even gets a few, he had 6 targets last week too. So they're working him into the passing game as well. So I just think for his price, he's worth it at just 6.5K on FanDuel. And we know the upsides there. And if you happen to end up getting a couple of touchdowns, he could really win some GPPs for you. So I just like that.
Yeah, and I kind of thought the same thing with Barkley. I know he didn't get nearly the same amount of money or the same circumstances, but he kind of folded like a lawn chair a day after those negotiations started. But, they paid him a little bit more money, came back from injury, boom, 24 carries last week. Okay, that was an eye-opening. So I'm assuming the volume is all systems go with Barkley as well, all the way up top. Drop those questions in the Discord, and the YouTube will circle back. But for now, we're going to move on to wide receiver Cooper Kupp. Speaking about coming back and never losing a beat, Cooper Kupp, just an assassin out there on the football field. So we have Cooper Kupp at the top. He's popular. A lot of expert blips there. Dre, talk to me about Cooper Kupp. I know you mentioned Stafford, and then give me some other players you're looking at. Oh, strike one. Get the mute count rolling, Steve. My guy's on mute. I'm finally winning a mute battle on crunch time. Feels good to be ahead of the game.
Hello? Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good. Let's hear it.
Cooper Kupp is easily probably the best receiver to play on. Best receiver to easily play on the slate today. He's just going to get peppered with targets. I look for him to probably get 15 targets today and just catch majority of them and be just open the field. There's no one that can guard him. He's playable in every slate. So to me, just lock him in, play as much of him as you can, and just watch the points roll in from there, honestly. But other receivers that I do like today, I like a few of these guys up top today. Keenan Allen is an excellent play today that is going to get played a good amount today in that Chargers KC game. I do like Stephon Diggs a lot. He has killed and destroyed the Patriots every single time except for one game. So being overweight on him if you can in tournaments is going to be fantastic. So I like that a lot. Devontae Adams, I want to be overweight on him, but I'm probably just going to be at the field. It's just kind of iffy with the way he talked his comments. I love the way he was speaking about it just because he wants to be great. I get it. But if your team's winning, that's more important in my opinion. So hopefully the coach hears them and lets them get the targets, but we'll see how that goes. I like Amon-Ra today a lot too as well. I think that's a fantastic play. In this mid-range, we shouldn't sleep on this mid-range. This mid-range has a lot of guys in there that's good, even though without the quarterback, main quarterbacks playing. So DJ Moore, I think is an excellent play that you can play today. Amari Cooper with Deshaun Watson back is an excellent play. I like Michael Pittman Jr. today a lot as well. I like Zay Flowers a lot today as well too. Christian Watson as well is another good play. I think this is going to be the best game he has all season, even though this is the third game back. Terry McLaurin, I think, is a fantastic play today. I want to be well over the field on him if I can. I also do like Deontay Johnson as well. I like a little bit of Drake London, nothing crazy. Curtis Samuel, like Rasheed Rice. I like Jackson Smith as well. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm not going to even try to. And then I do like Wan'Dale Robinson, but I really do love more Darius Slayton. If he's going to be 1% owned, just sign me up. He plays majority of the snaps. I know Wan'Dale Robinson's getting more work in and more snap counts, but I look for Slayton to try to get more targets here and dominate the secondary, which is very weak for for the Commanders. Sorry.
Kristi, you have Geno tagged. DK Metcalf up in the air. I mean, I haven't heard anything super negative, even banged up for a couple of weeks. Metcalf, Lockett, and JSN. What are you doing with these Seattle receivers?
Yeah, it's interesting because with DK being a true game time decision, I think that's, that can change some things. But I like Lockett regardless. And I actually like Jackson Smith, even I just think there's going to be plenty of opportunities. I think he's a great value play too. So I have a lot of interest in both Lockett and Jackson Smith. I think with Metcalf right now, I don't have a lot of him, thinking that he's possibly going to sit out. And I'll have to do some shifting around if that's the case. But I'm going to be loading up on those two in particular with Geno Smith, and two of my favorite plays for sure. I agree with Cooper Kupp. I mean, top receiver on the slate, and he can break a slate wide open. We saw that again last week. So I like that. I know Puka, especially on FanDuel, is, coming in as the highest owned receiver. Good price point for him. He's still getting a ton of targets. And I do like getting those two paired with Stafford just because we know where the targets are going to go this week. So I like that for tournaments a ton. Zay Flowers, obviously, in those Lamar lineups, especially, getting a ton of targets, picking up some good ownership, but certainly like him. I know Dre mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was coming in at about 10% ownership on Friday. It's picked up a little bit, but I really like him a lot. There's no Montgomery. I like both him and Gibbs a lot. He can obviously break a slate too, so I think he's a great play. Christian Watson's another guy I tagged. I do like that Green Bay game. I know Dre mentioned Jordan Love. I do. I think it's a sneaky game stack this week. You've got Watson, you've got the rookie tight end Luke Musgrave. So there's some good options there. Certainly like that as well. And then Devontae Adams. I think a little bit of the squeaky wheel narrative. I mean, Josh Jacobs is very popular, but I really like Adams. Like a lot of trade talk. They're going to keep him. I think they look to get him the ball too, and he's at a pretty good price point. So I think he makes a really good tournament play as well. And then I do like Amari Cooper, but I'm mostly playing him in the Deshaun lineups that I have. So I think he's fine in those stack plays as well.
Yeah, I like Cooper a lot. I like the matchup. Indy is very vulnerable out wide. The game's indoors, so you don't have to worry about weather. Large field tournaments, I think there's a shot Elijah Moore comes back from the dead if Watson is competent over there. Large field tournaments, wouldn't play that, in like small field stuff. I think Deontay Johnson's interesting. A lot of unknown there, coming back. He was on IR, but the good news was he should have had more than enough time to get right. And it's the Matt Canada offense, as atrocious as most of us probably agree it is. What is it? It's out routes and 7-yard A-dot throws, and that's Deontay Johnson, right? Like that fits like gloves. So I think he's kind of an interesting tournament run back with the Cooper Kupp teams, or Puka if you're on FanDuel. Roof's open in Indy. Said Hoosiers in the chat. Well, I'm sure the weather must be in okay shape over there regardless. But that's good to know. So, yeah, I mean, in Zay Flowers, another guy who doesn't need super long, high A-dot throws to do damage, right? They're going to design some short passes and some stuff for him to get him in space. So I think the Zay Flowers call, especially with Lamar, makes a lot of sense. And, Puka and Zay at those ownerships are looking like, cash game plug-in plays on FanDuel. And they'll probably come in a little bit higher than what RotoGrinders currently has them projected at. Anything else on wide receiver, or should we move on to tight end?
Yeah, let's move on to tight end.
Cool. So we have Will Smith, aka Travis Kelce, at the top of both price points here. Kristi, I'll leave it with you. We're making fun of the analogy, Will Smith, but seriously, like head and shoulders above the rest in terms of ceiling. Like, how do you prioritize him on a slate like this? Like, what are your thoughts here?
I really like him. I am prioritizing him. I think he's worth it today. I even like playing him, without Mahomes. I just think he's, a top tier receiver. He's the guy in that offense. They've been, aside from Kelce, they spread it around a ton. So I definitely think he's worth it. He's affordable on really both sites too. There are some cheaper plays that I do like at tight end that are worth it if you want to pay up more for, running back or receiver positions. But this is a week that I'm definitely taking a stance where I want to be more overweight on Kelce. He can break the slate. He could easily get 2, even 3 touchdowns. It wouldn't surprise anyone. And he might be someone you have to have on your team. So I do like Kelce. Right under him, though, I think Andrews, in those Lamar Jackson stacks that we were talking about, I think it makes a ton of sense. He's, quite a bit cheaper than Kelsey, still has a ton of upside. So those are probably my two favorite high-end plays today. Getting down on the cheaper side, we talked about Luke Musgrave. I think he's an excellent play, really on both sides, just because if he can, happen to get a touchdown, you're just hoping to get a few points there, to really set you apart. So I certainly like him. David Njoku, I think with Deshaun back too, I think, very good price point too. He's just 4.9K. He's a little on FanDuel. He's a little bit higher on DK, but don't mind that. Sam Laporta, he isn't coming in quite as high for ownership, but I don't mind him for tournaments at all. I mean, we've seen him have some huge games, been playing really, really well this year. So I don't mind taking some shots at him. And then I would also throw in, this is more probably of a DK play, but Michael Mayer in that Vegas game there. I think he's an interesting value play if you're looking to save some money as well.
I don't hate the fancy Kyle Pitts, Darren Waller on this slate either. Eventually, Tyler Higbee is going to score a touchdown. I don't know when that's going to happen, but, I kind of like that game as well. So, Andre, tight end, what are your thoughts here, and where are you at with Travis Kelce?
Yeah, top tight end on the slate. I have to play him a lot, so he's easily going to be my most overexposed tight end for sure. I do also like Mark Andrews, Laporta, Pitts, and Jonnu Smith a lot. I got some Waller, but not a lot. I do also. This is where I'm going to be sneaky at. It's going to be part of my Geno stacks to go with Noah Fant. Noah Fant, if you like, they give it up to the tight end position too as well. So I love Noah Fant today, pairing him with Geno Smith in the majority of my stacks, and doing it with either Kenneth Walker to get different GPPs, or also or even with Tyler Lockett, which is probably my favorite receiver on the which is definitely my favorite receiver on Seattle today. So I love pairing him a lot with him and having at least like 15-20% of him on compared to the field today.
Jonnu Smith just making up for lost time when New England didn't use him. It's like we're just gonna retroactively give him his targets that he didn't get in New England. It's just crazy. But Kyle Pitts is coming around.
Oh, Zach Ertz too. Sorry, I didn't mention Zach Ertz. I love Zach Ertz today.
And it is National Tight End Day. Brian said in the chat, does that mean Dallas Goedert gets just a default 5% captain bump tonight because people are going to play the National Tight End Day narrative? Last year was tight end season in Showdown. Every other week it seemed like, every week for the first 2 months was just tight ends optimal captains. So happy National Tight End Day, and Travis Kelce rightfully carrying a ton of ownership. Defense as volatile as it gets. Let's check out the defense. A big shout out to my guy Steve, working the board for us here. What are you guys doing at defense? And just from a talking point, when you multi-enter, what do you do with team defenses in your player pool? Do you try to trim it? Do you try to spread it around a little bit, Kristi? What's your take on defenses in DFS?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Defense is so volatile that, especially this week, we're seeing the Giants come in on FanDuel in particular, very, very high owned. I'm way, way under. In fact, not playing much of them at all, just because, I actually like Washington a little bit on the other side. So I just think it's good to have exposure to a lot of different teams because it is the most volatile play on the slate. So for defense this week, for instance, I do like the Chiefs, and I know they're a really good value play over on DraftKings. They're probably one of my higher owned defenses on DK. They've been a good, even though they're going up against the Chargers, they've been just a good defense all year long. So I like that. The Patriots defense, their min price on FanDuel, and even on DK a little bit. I just think, they have the opportunity to put up some points. They haven't been great this year, but I'm willing to go at the bottom and do something different there. So this week, I don't really have any clear-cut plays that I like, although I do like the Chiefs. I think that's a good one. And so I'm kind of building my lineups, kind of seeing where I land first, but I'm a little bit more spread out than usual.
Go ahead, Dre. What's your take on defenses when you multi-enter?
I trim it down as much as I can to at least half of them if I can, or try to get at least 10. But today I have a spread out. I have the Chiefs as my top defense overall, followed by the Browns and the Ravens. Just because I want just opportunities to pick up the ball and get sixes. Ravens I know is a little bit shaky. It's a risk there, obviously, with Jared Goff, but Jared Goff does sometimes turn the ball over and they can't fumble the ball, so I'd like them. But I'm also going to Lions on the other side because I know that game is also going to have some weather issues there. So I like both of those defenses for turnover purposes. I really was trying to see if I could get more of like guys like the Bills, but it's hard for me to get them in there a lot just because of how I'm building my lineups today. So I'm just sticking with those main teams and go from there. Chiefs though is probably the best defense on the slate to play, and they are just on DK undervalued at 2,400. Like
I agree.
Granted, like Chargers can still put up points, and they probably will put up points, but their defense since they got what's his name back, the D tackle back, it's been incredible. It's been really incredible. It's a big difference that he makes, and that's why they should pay him his money. But yeah, so that's my overall top defense today. And honestly, if you want to get different. But I think there's other spots on the slate as far as position wise you can get different on to help you win the GPP today.
Got about 11 minutes until lock. So before we get to some questions, let me ask you about a stack here, Kristi. You can't say Mahomes and you can't say Geno. I'll make this a little tough. Give me your next favorite look here let's go with large field tournaments.
Yeah, for large field tournaments, I am probably going to say, can I use Stafford? I just think I like Stafford a lot just because I like doing the double stack today with Cup, Puka in there, and just really kind of overstacking that game. And I think because there's so much value elsewhere, Stafford is going to be underowned.
Ray, I didn't pay attention to lineup HQ, but I know Kristi had Geno tagged, so I just figured I'd throw a wrench in there and have her give us something else. I know you like Stafford too, so you can't say Stafford. Give me your next best large field tournament stack.
I'm going to say it's tough. I'm going to probably say Jordan Love. Give me him with Aaron Jones and Christian Watson or Musgrave, one of the two as a second person to pair with them. You don't even need a run back. Just play them and that's it. And I think you'll be fine. I think that Jordan Love, he doesn't even need to have 300 yards, but if he puts up touchdowns, which I think he will put up a lot of touchdowns today, you'll be just fine.
All right, let's get to some questions here. Kristi, I'll throw it over to you. In the Discord, Prodigy asks, for FanDuel single entry, would you rather have Jahmyr Gibbs or Royce Freeman?
Definitely Gibbs. He's a good price today, and I just think with the volume he gets without Montgomery is a really good play.
All right. FanDuel Cash, Dre, Lamar and Amon-Ra or Geno and Cooper Kupp?
Geno, Cooper Kupp.
All right, let's see here. Hollywood or Christian Watson, Kristi, for FanDuel GPPs?
I would say Christian Watson.
Okay. Alan in the YouTube chat is asking, in a Ravens, let's see here, hold on. Yeah, in a Ravens stack, Andre, would you rather have Gibbs or St. Brown as the run back on DraftKings?
That's tough. That really is tough. I don't know. I like both of them a lot. I'm trying to take the lesser owned of the two. Gibbs right now, I think is coming in at 17%. We have St. Brown coming in at what? At 11? Yeah, St. Brown then at 11%.
All right, jumping back over to the Discord from Rog11 in the chat. Would you rather have Sutton and Musgrave, Kristi, or Judy and Michael Mayer?
I think I'd go Sutton and Musgrave.
Okay, let's go to the YouTube chat again here. Andre, Jahmyr Gibbs or Rashid White?
Gibbs all day. I like Rashid White earlier in the week. I didn't mention him. I don't know. I'm really, really iffy on him. I think he can still have a good game, but I'm not as high on him as I was earlier in the week. I think that Atlanta front seven is really something to be concerned with.
DK Cash question. Is Geno Smith good in cash on DraftKings, Kristi?
Yeah, I think he's a good play for cash. Absolutely. I think he's fine. I think Deshaun Watson's fine. Yeah, I think some of those cheap guys make sense.
Okay, over to the Discord. We didn't really talk about these quarterbacks. Large field tournament. I'm guessing here, Andre. Kenny Pickett or Sam Howell? This is a fun one.
Give me Sam Howell all day, every day.
Cool. Let's see. Andre in the chat is asking about Curtis Samuel. Any love for Curtis Samuel, Kristi?
You know, he's not someone that made my player pool this week. I do have interest in Brian Robinson. I don't know if we talked about him a whole lot. I have some interest in him, but yeah, Samuel didn't make my pool.
Trey, you mentioned Samuel, right? Is he in your pool?
Curtis Samuel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him in stacks. I have probably way too much of him, but I like him today a good amount in stacks, yeah.
FanDuel single entry, Dre. I'll keep it with you. Pacheco or Josh Jacobs for FanDuel single entry?
Pacheco or Josh Jacobs? That's tough. Give me Pacheco.
All right. Got a Packers stack question for you, Kristi. Let's see. Desmond's asking about his Packers stack. Who would you run him back with on Denver?
On Denver, I know I have a couple of those. I probably have Sutton, is probably who I have the most of as a run back for Denver.
All right. FanDuel single entry, Andre. Would you rather have Gibbs and McLaurin or Keenan Allen and Royce Freeman?
The first one, easily. I'm not playing Royce at all today.
Okay, yeah, we'll see what Sean McVay has up his sleeve, despite whatever the coach speak was. It's just not for me either. I'm okay. Yeah. Okay. Deontay Johnson or DJ Moore, DraftKings scoring, Kristi?
I like DJ Moore quite a bit for tournaments. I really do. We've seen his upside. It's immense. I do like Deontay Johnson, but I think the upside is way, way better for DJ Moore.
Okay. And I'll open this one up to both of you guys. What are we doing with Jerome Ford and cash now? Now that Hunt's active, I mean, great price, right? Yeah, it's an interesting question. To what degree is Kareem Hunt, going to play? Are we going to see a 50-50 split? How hurt was he all week? It's tough to say. Are you in or out on cash, Andre, on Jerome Ford?
Cash, I think you still play him. In general, overall, to me, like just because I was digging into this right now, even to a little bit, they said that they were concerned about his availability. Anyway, I think he might not even play that much. I think Ford's going to get majority of the work today, so I think he's still going to play. I got like 40% of him in my lineups today, so I'm going forward with playing him. I think anyone should play him too.
All right. Kristi, what are your thoughts on that real quick?
I'm actually, for cash, I'm actually out on him. The guys that I like for cash, I'm looking Kenneth Walker, Josh Jacobs, Pacheco, and Gibbs are probably the guys that I'm looking at for cash. I think he makes a better tournament play now, just with some of the I agree he's a very, very good, has a good price point, but probably not for cash for me.
Luke Cage in the Discord, Andre, asking about Deontay Foreman. He's cheap. Not fantastic last week, not horrible. Are we in or out on Deontay?
I'm in on him. I think Vegas front seven is still not that great. Play him all day.
Kristi, you agree?
Yep, I agree. We didn't really talk about him, but he's a really good price over on DK, so I think he's a great tournament play.
Cool. 12:55-ish here. Start hitting those save buttons. We'll try to get through the rest of these questions. All right. Let me scroll up here. 1 second. There we go. All right. We have a question from Michael. Kristi, I'll leave it with you. Would you rather have Russell Wilson and Cortland Sutton with a Christian Watson bring back, or would you rather a Watson double stack with Cooper and Elijah Moore? I'm believing I got this right.
Okay. I do kind of like that second one. You talked about Elijah Moore being kind of an interesting GPP play. I think I like that second one. Like you said, it's in a dome, a lot of good opportunities. I think I'll go with the Watson.
There's a couple of Watsons in that question, but I think I got that one right. See, FanDuel GPP question from Cheyenne in the YouTube channel. Mark Andrews or Tyler Lockett, Dre? Sounds like a flex decision here.
Andrews or Tyler Lockett? Give me Tyler Lockett.
All right. What's up, Jack, in the chat? Good afternoon to you as well. For cash on FanDuel, Kristi, I think we had this exact cash question earlier from someone. Josh Jacobs or Isaiah Pacheco? Let me hear your take on that.
I'm trying to get both in for cash, actually. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably go Jacobs. But I like them both.
Okay. OS in the chat says thoughts on 6,900 for Amari Cooper or Tyler Lockett at 6,800. Andre, you got to lean on either one of those receivers.
Amari Cooper or Lockett?
Yep.
Oh boy. Geez, that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Give me. Oh my goodness.
Who's the quarterback's the question?
I'll probably have, but I have more. I have literally both of them equally, actually. Give me Tyler Lockett. I'll probably regret that. This is actually, yeah. Give me Amari Cooper.
Well, the good news is everyone knows you like both of them a lot. If we're getting anything out of that question, so play Cooper and Lockett today. FanDuel Cash from John. Kristi, Geno or Stafford for FanDuel Cash?
I would go Geno.
All right. Is Cam Hayward or Royce Freeman even a question? Mindful guidance. I don't even know what the price points are off the top of my head on both of these guys. I mean, I guess, I'm playing the running back roulette, with Sean McVay over Cam Hayward if I had to pick one. So good luck with that one. B-Shot in the chat. Bye week Helen season long. Listen, man. If we have time afterwards, I'll get to your season-long question. Thanks for listening, B-Shot. You're the man. FanDuel single entry from Keith. Gibbs and McLaurin or Keenan Allen and Royce Freeman? Kristi, I'll stick with you.
Did you say Gibbs and McLaurin?
Gibbs and McLaurin or Keenan Allen and Royce Freeman?
Yeah, I'd go Gibbs McLaurin.
Is Mecole Hardman in play today? Anybody thinking about Mecole Hardman?
I think he's a fine. I mean, like in a large field GPP 150 lineups, definitely he's worth a stab for sure. Just because you just don't know who they're going to utilize in that offense, and he has upside.
Kristi, I'll stick right here with you for FanDuel Cash. Favorite mid-range wide receiver for cash in that range? Do you have any specific play you're gung ho about?
In the mid-range, I do like Lockett. I do like Flowers, Zay Flowers. Christian Watson, and I think even Jackson Smith. I think could be cash viable, especially if we get word that Metcalf is out. I'd take the savings with him too.
Cool. Dre, DK Cash, 1258. We'll try to power through the rest of the ones here. Cooper Kupp and Josh Palmer or Keenan Allen and Zay Flowers. That's a tough one too, Dre. What do you think?
Second one.
Okay. Let's see. Devontae Adams or Mike Evans? I'm thinking that's what we're talking about here. What do you think, Kristi?
I would go Devontae Adams.
Okay. Luke Musgrave. Any love for Luke Musgrave, Andre? What are you thinking with him today?
I actually have him. I'm just changed to him actually in my $333 lineup, so I like it.
Amon-Ra St. Brown and Bijan or Kenneth Walker and Amari, Kristi?
I would go Walker and Amari. I like Walker a lot today. Amari, we obviously all like him today too. Yeah, I think that's what I would go with.
Cash game question for you, Dre, from Jose in the chat. Amon-Ra St. Brown or DJ Moore for cash?
St. Brown.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on St. Brown too. I think we're mostly caught up.
Payne, I could have went with Zay Flowers.
See a couple people type. Oh, we hit 1 o'clock, so we're hitting lock. Saw a prop question. Check out Scores and Odds. Our prop model is up, I think 19 or 20 units with player props. So I can't just give you one. I mean, and by now all lines are like way gone anyway from what they opened up at. Cash question for Kristi in the Discord just came in from the Pharaoh. Would you rather have Kenneth Walker and JSN or Isaiah Pacheco and Deontay Johnson for cash?
I think I'd go the first. Would you say Kenneth Walker and?
Yep, and JSN or Pacheco and Deontay Johnson.
Ooh.
Tough.
I think I'd go the first one with Walker, JSN.
Guess it depends on, what if do we have Metcalf updates? I mean, if there's anything, if they say, oh, he's on a serious pitch count, maybe you think about JSN a little more, but
Exactly.
under normal circumstances, I think I'm with you. Cool. What was your season-long question, B-Shot? Let me scroll up here. Bye week hell, it certainly is. Would you consider Henderson as your flex piece? All right. Henderson or Deontay Foreman, Kadarius Toney. Man, I mean, the Rams love that guy. He just never goes away. But you're in trouble, B-Shot. I think if you're starting Henderson this week, you're in trouble, but I think you already know that.
I have a question real quick. Cooper Kupp or Stephon Diggs?
Tournaments?
High dollar tournaments.
What's the rest? What's like? Who does the quarterback matter?
I got it's Deshaun Watson.
I mean, God, with minimal context there, it's hard to not want to play Cooper Kupp there, but yeah, I'd play Cooper Kupp.
I made the right decision.
Whoa, don't pin that on me. I don't want you to circle back with me in 3 hours and say, we should play Cooper Kupp. I guess that's it. Thanks for everyone for sticking with us throughout the entire morning. Big shout out to everybody that was on the shows earlier. Shout out to Steve. And I guess that's it. Let's go watch some football. So for Kristi, Dre, and Steve, I'm Justin. Thanks, guys, and good luck.